the top leaders of the Congress party, Sonia Ji, Kharge, nobody ended up calling it a political event. Now, when the scam came out in July 7th, when Chief Minister of Himachal Pradesh took out a march and did havan outside the temple and even said Rajiv Gandhi was crucial in opening the locks of the temple. So, what is the stance of the Congress party?
Look, not just some of us. The Shankaracharya, Swami Avimukteswaranand ji, was asked, why haven't you gone to the temple? He came up with a beautiful response. And that sums up the feelings of millions of Hindus. That this has become the collection center for RSS. Instead of a temple, they are using it as a collection center for RSS, and therefore, Swami Avimukteswaranand ji said that he hasn't gone to the temple. You use temples as collection center for your money, and you use your own Nagpur headquarters and your BJP headquarters as pilgrimage centers. And if you come with me to Delhi, I'll take you to the newly constructed headquarters of RSS in Delhi, in Jhandewala. I have traveled across the world a lot. I have traveled across the country a lot. I have not seen a more lavish, a more luxurious building as the RSS headquarters in Delhi. You come with me to the BJP headquarters in Delhi. You and I have heard of and perhaps visited some 7-star properties in the country. If there is something called 14-star, it's the BJP headquarters in Delhi. Is this why you are looting temples? Is this why you are indulging in large-scale corruption? Where is that money coming from? You ask us, why have we not gone to the temple? We ask you, why have you misused this temple? Why have you betrayed the faith and trust and confidence of people, of millions and millions of Hindus? That's the question all of us have in our minds.
Would you like to take some other questions apart from this?
If this is over, then. Please bring religious leaders. Please bring the Shankaracharyas. After all, they should be the custodian of our faith. Not Mohan Bhagwat, for God's sake. Not Narendra Modi, for God's sake. Why should Amit Shah be the custodian of my faith? Why should Mohan Bhagwat sitting in Nagpur be the custodian of my faith? The custodians of my faith are the Shankaracharyas. And they should be entrusted the task of managing this temple.
The trust was formed in 2020 in pursuant to the 2019 Supreme Court judgment. So when a political party raises a question that it has to be, that the solution has to be done, has your party even checked a possibility whether Supreme Court can take a decision on it, or is it just a political rhetoric?
Supreme Court can take a decision on?
On whether, because it was pursuant to the ruling by the Supreme Court, this trust was formed in 2020. Yet,
But I must ask you, did the Supreme Court tell the Prime Minister's office who should be the trustees? Which gentleman should be a trustee? No. That was the choice of the Prime Minister's office and RSS, not the Supreme Court. Supreme Court did not give you names of people who should be appointed as trustees. Why did you keep the Shankaracharyas out? Why did you fill that trust with RSS? What was Nripen Mishra doing there? Where was he looking after the construction? So these are questions that need to be asked. And these are questions that need to be answered by the Prime Minister.
Another subject.
Let's first focus on this. In case the questions are over on this, then you are most welcome.
Today there are some PILs before the Supreme Court denying CBI. Would Congress be okay with it, or you are...
Our demand is Supreme Court. We have asked for a SC monitored time-bound probe. Because agencies also, people have question marks on agencies. Most cases, more ED than CBI, but most cases, these agencies are becoming extensions of the BJP.
Mr. Khera, in fact, Rahul Gandhi has been fighting a battle in the parliament and outside as well against Mr. Adani. And you are newly sworn in Chief Minister here in Kerala have been accused of teaming up with him because in the Vizhinjam port there is a stake, Vizhinjam, they are offloading the stake, Adani port. And in a rare earth corridor, there is a doubt being raised by the opposition that it has been opened up for the private sector with the corridor. So there are, and also in a liquor deal where this low alcohol liquor is being given a tax cut in the state budget, in the finance bill here. So how do you see this? Because of
Look, I haven't really gone into these details of the state government right now. It's a new government, so I think I would not like to comment on issues that I haven't studied personally. Having said that, Mr. Gandhi has also been very clear. We are opposed to monopolization. We are opposed to monopolies. And that's a stand which we've taken all along.
CGP strike is entering another phase. Sonam Wangchuk's health is also worsening. What is the stand of the
Sorry?
CGP strike in Delhi is entering another phase. Sonam Wangchuk's health is also deteriorating. What is the stand of the country?
I would like to draw your attention and your memory to what happened 15 years ago, 14 years ago, when Anna Hazare was sitting on a fast unto death. We were in power, we were in government. I wouldn't say power, we were in government. Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister. On the 5th or 6th day of his fast, the government showed a lot of sensitivity and started a dialogue with them. 4th day actually. I was part of that dialogue. Pranab Mukherjee Sahab, Salman Khurshid ji, a lot of our leaders were directly engaging with the team of Anna Hazare. On the 4th day itself, that's the kind of sensitivity our government had shown. Though we were at the receiving end of all the questions, of all the accusations, of all the demands, and why not? Activists have a right to do that. And it's our duty to listen to them. So as part of our duty, we started engaging with them. Not just engaging with them, we asked them to draft the Jan Lokpal bill. And I remember very clearly on the 10th day of his fast, at night, 11 o'clock, Vilas Raoji Deshmukh, who is no more, went and met him. He was accompanied by me and some other leaders of our party. And the Lokpal bill draft was finalized outside the tent at Ramlila Maidan, Anna Hazare ji, Vilas Raoji Deshmukh and other people of his team. And on the 11th day, his fast ended. Today is the 16th day of Sonam Wangchuk's fast. Have you seen a single representative of the government approaching him? That's the level of insensitivity this government has towards activists. You saw what they did to the farmers. 750 farmers were killed. They died. You've seen what they did to the NEET activists, the youth. Anybody who asks questions to Narendra Modi is an anti-national. Dr. Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister for 10 years. He engaged with the media, he engaged with the activists, he engaged with his critics. Before him, they were Prime Ministers. Even Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji used to engage. Narasimha Rao ji used to engage. Rajiv ji was known to be very well known for this. Indira ji. Every Prime Minister realized that this is a democracy, appreciated the fact that engagements, conversations need to take place. Here is the first government which is so insensitive that a 60-year-old, 59-year-old man has entered the 16th day of his fast, no engagement. Prime Minister is, I think, back now. He's busy giving melody chalk toffees to somebody in Italy.
But what is opposition stand?
Engage with the people who are asking questions. That's our stand. You are in power. You have to engage. Why are you not engaging? Nobody is your enemy. You are in power. Therefore, questions will be asked to you. Demands will be made of you. Criticism also you'll have to face. But for God's sake, please engage. The issues raised by anyone need to be supported. We support all issues raised by anyone in this country. We don't call them anti-national. Whether we are in power or we are in opposition, these are issues which we all support. In fact, if you've, and I'm sure you have, Kota in Rajasthan saw a huge gathering in the series which Mr. Gandhi started there, Chhatron Ki Goonj, the echo of the youth, of students. And 17th, again, he's doing it in Dehradun. So, we have been consistently raising the voice, the issues faced by the youth of this country who prepare for exams and the papers get leaked. They reappear for the exams. There is no faith people have in the examination system of this country.
Sir, it's been a week after Wayanad landslide, and BJP is now questioning that MP Priyanka Gandhi Vadra has not visited Wayanad yet.
So if we visit, they will say they are disrupting the relief work. If we don't visit, they'll say, oh, they haven't visited. Fact of the matter is, we have a sensitive, responsible government in Kerala. Therefore, there is no immediate need to disrupt the relief work. We need to go where, like Hathras we went, because we knew the government there is insensitive. And to flag the issues, a visit of this kind was required.
You see, on the temple control, I'm asking about a broader
Sure.
issue. You see, in Kerala, in Congress-ruled states also, it is the state control of temple, that there is pilfering, there is stealing happening. There is private trust, now it has been alleged the private trust is also stealing. So you are saying that there should be a court monitor audit of temples. Wouldn't this standard should be applied for all the temples, whether it is state controlled or not? Because here we see in Sabrimala, it was the state controlled temple, there has been stealing. Whether it is private also, there is stealing. So shouldn't this standards apply to all the temples?
Well, this is an important debate that we need to have in this country. I'm glad you've asked this question because time has come for this kind of a debate. What happened in Ayodhya is unprecedented. Ayodhya, a temple that was constructed after 30 years of politics around that issue. Through a Supreme Court order, it got constructed. The trust was made because of the Supreme Court order. But all through these 3 decades, we've seen one particular party, one particular ideology, one organization called the RSS and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, misusing the movement, misusing the faith of people, not just for votes, but also for money. So this model needs to be exposed as soon as possible. This exposure is required so that no other party, never again in future, has the courage to misuse the faith of people, to betray the faith of people. Anyone else? Any other topic? Thank you. Thank you very much. The Congress party has been raising its voice on behalf of millions and millions of people who believed in the movement of Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Millions and millions of these people who saved their hard-earned money to donate for the construction of the temple, and then after the construction was completed, as offerings to the god. We all know that families save money for years to go for pilgrims. For these pilgrimages, they save money, and then that money is also offered to the Lord across the country. But the BJP's model, the RSS's model of politics in the name of faith and a business model around temples. Now, this business model around temples is daylight dacoity. It's a daylight dacoity not just of the offerings, jewelry, money, valuables that people offer to the Lord, but also dacoity of our faith, of our trust, of the confidence that we have in the trust that was constituted by the Prime Minister's office on the directions of the Supreme Court. The trust which was entrusted the task of maintenance and upkeep of the temple, of regulating all the pilgrims, of being custodians of the offerings which people made to the Lord. And that trust was constituted, as I said, by the Prime Minister's office and by the RSS. They take credit of the construction of Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Though the temple was constructed on the orders of the Supreme Court. But who is taking the credit? Narendra Modi, RSS, Amit Shah. Now when they have been caught red-handed, stealing from the offerings, Prime Minister is silent. RSS is quiet. Amit Shah is absent. Who will take responsibility of this daylight robbery? Why is the Prime Minister quiet? You can't arrest junior officers, junior employees, and allow the senior people who are supposed to be watchdogs to get away scot-free. That's what is happening in Ayodhya. There is an attempt to protect someone. Whether that someone is in Delhi or Nagpur, we don't know. But there is somebody or a group which is senior who is being protected. We have been raising our voice. We have been asking questions. We have been raising our demands on behalf of a lot of believers. Nobody has a right to defame the Hindu faith. Nobody has a right to backstab that faith the way RSS and BJP has done in Ayodhya and elsewhere also. There are reports coming from Badrinath temple. There are reports coming from another temple, Baglamukhi temple in Madhya Pradesh. That right, I am afraid nobody can give. These are self-appointed thekedars, contractors, custodians of my faith, of our faith. And look what they have done in the name of faith. I'll give you some examples which are very startling. There is a company called L&T. L&T offered that they will construct this temple free of cost. 1 rupee they'll charge. No. 2,100 crores was spent on construction of this temple. When there is a company which is willing to construct it free of cost, why do you have to spend 2,100 crore rupees? A stone supplier from my state, Rajasthan, if you see the facade of the temple, they've used the Dholpur stone. Dholpur stone comes from my state. So there is a stone supplier from my state who offered to supply stone free of cost, again charging 1 rupee. No. The trust decided to buy stone 500 rupees per square feet. That's the 1 square feet stone right here. So 500 rupees per square feet. When there is a person willing out of his faith to donate that stone free of cost, why do you have to spend so much money? I'll give you a third example. A land was purchased by this trust 7-8 kilometers away from the temple for 86 crores. And now on that land, they were growing cattle feed. Believe me, there is no Gaushala attached to the temple. So who were you growing this cattle feed for? That land was bought by the trust at the price which is 8 times higher than the market price. what was happening in the name of faith in Ayodhya? What is still happening in the name of faith in Ayodhya? Raises very, very important questions. We have asked the Prime Minister to speak up. We have also asked that this trust should be dissolved and a new trust should be constituted with religious leaders, activists, people who are influential in the society, who have a good name in the society. They should constitute the new trust. And we want to know, if everything was so transparent and nothing was going wrong, why was Champat Rai removed? Why was Anil Mishra removed? Why have 8 or 9 people been arrested? Why was the CCTV footage removed? We demand a digital forensic investigation of all their accounts, of everything. A complete forensic audit is required of donations, offerings, land deals, the same land being bought again and again. There are several examples of that. So, in the name of Maryada Purushottam, Lord Ram, anybody found stealing, misusing the name, needs to be punished, howsoever high he or she may be occupying that office. Even if that office belongs to Delhi, even if somebody sitting in Nagpur is responsible for this theft, that person needs to be brought to book for the sake of millions and millions of people who contributed to the construction of this temple and who also offered their belongings, their valuables to the god. We have demanded a time-bound inquiry under the supervision of a Supreme Court judge, sitting judge. If the government has nothing to hide, why are they running away from this demand? This so-called SIT, people don't have much faith in this SIT. People want an independent inquiry. The SIT report was submitted to a member of the trust, the same trust which is under question mark. So, entire country is shocked at the way 30 years, for 30 years RSS, BJP, Vishwa Hindu Parishad collected money in the name of Lord Ram. Nirmohi Akhada accused the Vishwa Hindu Parishad of siphoning off 1400 crores some 25 years ago. No investigation. Nothing. Over the last 30 years, thousands and thousands of crores have been collected by RSS and Vishwa Hindu Parishad and BJP and siphoned off. This is the business model of theft. Your questions, please. Questions on this subject first.
Why this question being raised from Thiruvananthapuram? The reason why you come to Thiruvananthapuram to raise this particular issue on Ram Mandir?
We have done 50 press conferences. Today we'll be doing, I think this is the 50th press conference. Across the country, in all major cities, because these are the cities, these are the states from where BJP tried its best to hide behind the Lord Ram, collect money, try and get votes, and betray the trust of millions and millions of people across the country. Not just in the country, but also outside the country, the diaspora living outside the country. Therefore, we felt there was a need to go to all these important cities, all these important centers, and expose the wrongdoing of RSS, BJP and Vishwa Hindu Parishad.
In fact, in Shabarimala, when the loot happened, it was the BJP who came out first, accusing the government of having a role, and they said, you just can't pick up some Devasam board officials and, run away from your responsibility. So what do you think what the ruling government at the center is doing regarding this?
Very selective in their outrage. In Sabarimala, yes, you're right, they also came out. But when it comes to their own wrongdoings, the Prime Minister is quiet. All top leaders of BJP are quiet.
The FIR does not have names of any of the trustees. So far, the SIT has also found that around 80 lakhs have been recovered. What's the number that Congress is talking about in terms of the amount that is stolen? Because SIT says only 80 lakhs.
That's a very important question that you asked. Before this scam got exposed, the daily collection of Ayodhya was 15, 16 lakhs every day. After the exposure, the collection has gone up to 24, 25 lakhs a day. So you calculate. This is just the money, the rupee, the cash. There is a particular accusation raised by the Sindhi community that they had offered 200 kilograms of silver. Till date, we don't know where that silver is. They haven't shown that silver. They've just shown recovery of 80 lakhs and some ornaments, some jewelry. But a lot is missing. So we haven't really arrived at an exact figure because of lack of transparency. But if you roughly calculate, if the offerings have gone up from 15, 16 lakhs to 24, 25 lakhs, calculate from the last 4-5 years, and you will arrive at a figure.
Mr. Khera, apart from these press conferences, why are you shying away from having public protest on this issue?
We are doing it in Uttar Pradesh. Our Pradesh Congress Committee is doing it. They are on the roads. In fact, they were put under house arrest. Our PCC president and all our senior leaders of Uttar Pradesh were put under house arrest. So at every level, we are raising this issue.
But don't you think it should be a nationwide?
It will. This is the reason why we are doing press conferences, because there are various levels of protest. You're right, we will be doing it.
You know, when the Pran Pratishtha happened, the top leaders of the Congress party, Sonia ji, Kharge, nobody attended, calling it a political event. Now, when the scam came out on July 7th, when Chief Minister of Himachal Pradesh took out a march and did havan outside the temple and even said Rajiv Gandhi was crucial in opening the locks of the temple. So, what is the stance of the Congress party?
Look, not just some of us. The Shankaracharya, Swami Abhimukteswaranand ji, was asked, why haven't you gone to the temple? He came up with a beautiful response. And that sums up the feelings of millions of Hindus. That this has become the collection center for RSS. Instead of a temple, they are using it as a collection center for RSS, and therefore, Swami Abhimukteswaranand ji said that he hasn't gone to the temple. You use temples as collection center for your money, and you use your own Nagpur headquarters and your BJP headquarters as pilgrimage centers. And if you come with me to Delhi, I'll take you to the newly constructed headquarters of RSS in Delhi, in Jhandewala. I have traveled across the world a lot. I have traveled across the country a lot. I have not seen a more lavish, a more luxurious building as the RSS headquarters in Delhi. You come with me to the BJP headquarters in Delhi. You and I have heard of and perhaps visited some 7-star properties in the country. If there is something called 14-star, it's the BJP headquarters in Delhi. Is this why you are looting temples? Is this why you are indulging in large-scale corruption? Where is that money coming from? You ask us, why have we not gone to the temple? We ask you, why have you misused this temple? Why have you betrayed the faith and trust and confidence of people, of millions and millions of Hindus? That's the question all of us have in our minds.
Would you like to take some other questions apart from this?
If this is over, then.
When you say that people are not trusting trust. So, if you are considering to be part of the new trust which you are...
Please bring religious leaders. Please bring the Shankaracharyas. After all, they should be the custodian of our faith. Not Mohan Bhagwat, for God's sake. Not Narendra Modi, for God's sake. Why should Amit Shah be the custodian of my faith? Why should Mohan Bhagwat sitting in Nagpur be the custodian of my faith? The custodians of my faith are the Shankaracharyas. And they should be entrusted the task of managing this temple.
The trust was formed in 2020 in pursuant to the 2019 Supreme Court judgment. So when a political party raises a question that it has to be, that the resolution has to be done, has your party even checked a possibility whether Supreme Court can take a decision on it, or is it just a political rhetoric?
Supreme Court can take a decision on?
On whether, because it was pursuant to the ruling by the Supreme Court, this trust was formed in 2020. Yet,
But I must ask you, did the Supreme Court tell the Prime Minister's office who should be the trustees? Which gentleman should be a trustee? No. That was the choice of the Prime Minister's office and RSS, not the Supreme Court. Supreme Court did not give you names of people who should be appointed as trustees. Why did you keep the Shankaracharyas out? Why did you fill that trust with RSS? What was Nripen Mishra doing there? Where was he looking after the construction? So these are questions that need to be asked. And these are questions that need to be answered by the Prime Minister.
Another subject.
Let's first focus on this. In case the questions are over on this, then you are most welcome.
Today there are some PILs before the Supreme Court denying CBA. Will the Congress be okay with it, or you are...
Our demand is Supreme Court. We have asked for a SC monitored time-bound probe. Because agencies also, people have question marks on agencies. Most cases, more ED than CBI, but most cases, these agencies are becoming extensions of the BJP.
Mr. Khera, in fact, Rahul Gandhi has been fighting a battle in the parliament and outside as well against Mr. Adani. And you are newly sworn in Chief Minister here in Kerala, have been accused of teaming up with him because in the Vizhinjam port there is a stake, Vizhinjam, they are offloading the stake, Adani port. And in a rare earth corridor, there is a doubt being raised by the opposition that it has been opened up for the private sector with the corridor. So there are, and also in a liquor deal where this low alcohol liquor is being given a tax cut in the state budget, in a finance bill here. So how do you see this? Because of
Look, I haven't really gone into these details of the state government right now. It's a new government, so I think I would not like to comment on issues that I haven't studied personally. Having said that, Mr. Gandhi has also been very clear. We are opposed to monopolization. We are opposed to monopolies. And that's a stand which we've taken all along.
CJP strike is entering another phase. Sonam Wangchuk's said this also worsening. What is the stand of the
Sorry?
CJP strike in Delhi is entering another phase. Sonam Wangchuk's health is also deteriorating. What is the stand of the country?
I would like to draw your attention and your memory to what happened 15 years ago, 14 years ago, when Anna Hazare was sitting on a fast unto death. We were in power, we were in government. I wouldn't say power, we were in government. Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister. On the 5th or 6th day of his fast, the government showed a lot of sensitivity and started a dialogue with them. 4th day actually. I was part of that dialogue. Pranab Mukherjee Sahab, Salman Khurshid ji, a lot of our leaders were directly engaging with the team of Anna Hazare. On the 4th day itself, that's the kind of sensitivity our government had shown. Though we were at the receiving end of all the questions, of all the accusations, of all the demands, and why not? Activists have a right to do that. And it's our duty to listen to them. So as part of our duty, we started engaging with them. Not just engaging with them, we asked them to draft the Jan Lokpal bill. And I remember very clearly on the 10th day of his fast, at night, 11 o'clock, Vilas Raoji Deshmukh, who is no more, went and met him. He was accompanied by me and some other leaders of our party. And the Lokpal bill draft was finalized outside the tent at Ramlila Maidan. Anna Hazareji, Vilas Raoji Deshmukh and other people of his team. And on the 11th day, his fast ended. Today is the 16th day of Sonam Wangchuk's fast. Have you seen a single representative of the government approaching him? That's the level of insensitivity this government has towards activists. You saw what they did to the farmers. 750 farmers were killed. They died. You've seen what they did to the NEET activists, the youth. Anybody who asks questions to Narendra Modi is an anti-national. Dr. Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister for 10 years. He engaged with the media, he engaged with the activists, he engaged with his critics. Before him, they were Prime Ministers. Even Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji used to engage. Narasimha Rao ji used to engage. Rajiv ji was known to be very well known for this. Indira ji. Every Prime Minister realized that this is a democracy, appreciated the fact that engagements, conversations need to take place. Here is the first government which is so insensitive that a 60-year-old, 59-year-old man has entered the 16th day of his fast, no engagement. Prime Minister is, I think, back now. He's busy giving melody chalk toffees to somebody in Italy.
But what is opposition stand? Like,
Engage with the people who are asking questions. That's our stand. You are in power. You have to engage. Why are you not engaging? Nobody is your enemy. You are in power. Therefore, questions will be asked to you. Demands will be made of you. Criticism also will have to face. But for God's sake, please engage.
Are you supporting the CJP protest or not?
The issues raised by anyone need to be supported. We support all issues raised by anyone in this country. We don't call them anti-national. Whether we are in power or we are in opposition, these are issues which we all support. In fact, if you've seen, and I'm sure you have, Kota in Rajasthan saw a huge gathering in the series which Mr. Gandhi started there, Chhatron Ki Goonj, the echo of the youth, of students. And 17th, again, he's doing it in Dehradun. So, we have been consistently raising the voice, the issues faced by the youth of this country who prepare for exams and the papers get leaked. They reappear for the exams. There is no faith people have in the examination system of this country.
Sir, it's been a week after Wayanad landslide, and BJP is now questioning that MP Priyanka Gandhi Vadra has not visited Wayanad yet.
So if we visit, they will say they are disrupting the relief work. If we don't visit, they'll say, oh, they haven't visited. Fact of the matter is, we have a sensitive, responsible government in Kerala. Therefore, there is no immediate need to disrupt the relief work. We need to go where, like Hathras we went, because we knew the government there is insensitive. And to flag the issues, a visit of this kind was required.
You see, on the temple control, I'm asking about a broader
Sure.
issue of temple control. You see, in Kerala, in Congress-ruled states also, it is the state control of temple, that there is pilfering, there is stealing happening. There is private trust, now it has been alleged that private trust is also stealing. So, you are saying that there should be a court-monitored audit of temples. Wouldn't this standard should be applied for all the temples, whether it is state-controlled or not? Because here we see in Sabrimala, it was the state-controlled temple, there has been stealing. Whether it is private also, there is stealing. So shouldn't this standards apply to all the temples?
Well, this is an important debate that we need to have in this country. I'm glad you've asked this question because time has come for this kind of a debate. What happened in Ayodhya is unprecedented. Ayodhya temple that was constructed after 30 years of politics around that issue. Through a Supreme Court order, it got constructed. The trust was made because of the Supreme Court order. But all through these 3 decades, we've seen one particular party, one particular ideology, one organization called the RSS and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, misusing the movement, misusing the faith of people, not just for votes, but also for money. So this model needs to be exposed as soon as possible. This exposure is required so that no other party, never again in future, has the courage to misuse the faith of people, to betray the faith of people. Anyone else? Any other topic? Thank you. Thank you very much. The Congress party has been raising its voice on behalf of millions and millions of people who believed in the movement of Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Millions and millions of these people who saved their hard-earned money to donate for the construction of the temple, and then after the construction was completed, as offerings to the god. We all know that families save money for years to go for pilgrims. For these pilgrimages, they save money, and then that money is also offered to the Lord across the country. But the BJP's model, the RSS's model of politics in the name of faith and a business model around temples. Now, this business model around temples is daylight dacoity. It's a daylight dacoity not just of the offerings, jewelry, money, valuables that people offer to the Lord, but also dacoity of our faith, of our trust, of the confidence that we have in the trust that was constituted by the Prime Minister's office on the directions of the Supreme Court. The trust which was entrusted the task of maintenance and upkeep of the temple, of regulating all the pilgrims, of being custodians of the offerings which people made to the Lord. And that trust was constituted, as I said, by the Prime Minister's office and by the RSS. They take credit of the construction of Ram Temple in Ayodhya. Though the temple was constructed on the orders of the Supreme Court. But who is taking the credit? Narendra Modi, RSS, Amit Shah. Now when they have been caught red-handed, stealing from the offerings, Prime Minister is silent. RSS is quiet. Amit Shah is absent. Who will take responsibility of this daylight robbery? Why is the Prime Minister quiet? You can't arrest junior officers, junior employees, and allow the senior people who are supposed to be watchdogs to get away scot-free. That's what is happening in Ayodhya. There is an attempt to protect someone. Whether that someone is in Delhi or Nagpur, we don't know. But there is somebody or a group which is senior who is being protected. We have been raising our voice. We have been asking questions. We have been raising our demands on behalf of a lot of believers. Nobody has a right to defame the Hindu faith. Nobody has a right to backstab that faith the way RSS and BJP has done in Ayodhya and elsewhere also. There are reports coming from Badrinath temple. There are reports coming from another temple, Baglamukhi temple in Madhya Pradesh. That right, I am afraid nobody can give. These are self-appointed ठेकेदार.
Corporate law, criminal law,
Judiciary.
bro, what even fits me?
Relax. Join KR Mangalam School of Legal Studies. When Ria chose KR Mangalam University, she didn't just study law. She trained like a lawyer. Real moot courts, real internships, real industry exposure. While others were memorizing sections, she was building connection because she found confidence here. Opportunities found her everywhere. From courtrooms to corporate offices to boardrooms.
Don't just learn law, live it. KR Mangalam University, School of Legal Studies, where future lawyers make their first move.
Big basket. Everything you need delivered now.
Welcome to another insightful session at English Speeches. Today, we're diving into a powerful speech delivered by Subramanyam Jaishankar, India's Minister for External Affairs, at the 77th session of the UN General Assembly. Discover how India celebrates its 75 years of independence, the visionary steps under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, and the country's future pledges. Learn how these points connect to broader global issues like multilateralism, environmental care, and international diplomacy.
Madam President, Excellencies, distinguished members of the General Assembly, I bring to you the greetings of 1.3 billion plus people from the world's largest democracy. They join me in congratulating the President of the General Assembly, Ambassador Chaba Koroshi, on his election to chair the 77th session of the UN General Assembly. They follow closely developments at the United Nations, reflecting the increasingly globalized nature of our existence. We meet at a challenging time for the world order. This session's theme, a watershed moment, transformative solutions to interlocking challenges, seeks to capture its seriousness. Excellencies, the year 2022 is an important milestone in India's journey towards growth, development, and prosperity. India is celebrating 75 years of its independence, what we call Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. The story of that period has been one of toil, of determination, innovation, and enterprise of millions of ordinary Indians. They are rejuvenating a society pillaged by centuries of foreign attacks and colonialism. And they are doing so in a democratic framework whose steady progress is reflected in more authentic voices and grounded leadership. This new India, under the visionary and dynamic leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is a confident and resurgent society. Its agenda for our centenary will be achieved through the 5 pledges that we committed to on our Independence Day. 1, we are resolved to make India a developed country in the next 25 years. For the world, that creates more capacities for global good. 2, we will liberate ourselves from a colonial mindset. Externally, this means reformed multilateralism and more contemporary global governance. 3, our rich civilizational heritage will be a source of pride and of strength. This includes care and concern for the environment, so ingrained in our traditional ethos. 4, we will promote greater unity and solidarity. This expresses a coming together on global issues such as terrorism, pandemics, or the environment. And 5, we will instill consciousness of duties and responsibilities. This applies to nations as much as it does to citizens. These 5 pledges affirm our age-old outlook that sees the world as one family. We believe that national good and global good can be entirely in harmony. It is this conviction that led us to supply vaccines to over 100 nations. Similarly, our evacuation operations in HADR situations always had room for other nationals in distress. Even as we meet our own development targets, India offers partnerships to our brothers and sisters in Asia, in Africa, and Latin America. And we do so based on their needs and their priorities. Today, the focus is on green growth, better connectivity, digital delivery, and accessible health. Our solidarity is not just in words. You can see them in 700 projects across the world. Madam President, even while India contributes to global betterment, we recognize the sharp deterioration in the international landscape. The world is already struggling with challenges of post-pandemic economic recovery. The debt situation of the developing is precarious. To this is now added the rising costs and the shrinking availability of fuel, of food, and of fertilizers. These, along with trade disruptions and diversions, are among the many consequences of the Ukraine conflict. The Indo-Pacific, too, witnesses fresh concerns about its stability and its security. And climate events have added an overlay on these mounting anxieties. As we saw in the case of the COVID pandemic, the South will be the most impacted, even if the immediate causes are well beyond. It is imperative that global conversations recognize this deep unfairness. The inequity of vaccine distribution should not be replicated in other domains. Madam President, as the Ukraine conflict continues to rage, we are often asked, whose side are we on? And our answer each time is straight and honest. India is on the side of peace and will remain firmly there. We are on the side that respects the UN Charter and its founding principles. We are on the side that calls for dialogue and diplomacy as the only way out. We are on the side of those struggling to make ends meet, even as they stare at the escalating costs of food, of fuel, and fertilizers. It is therefore in our collective interest to work constructively, both within the United Nations and outside, in finding an early resolution to this conflict. Excellencies, while the global attention has been on Ukraine, India has also had to contend with other challenges, especially in its own neighborhood. Some of them may be aggravated by the COVID pandemic and ongoing conflicts, but they speak too of a deeper malaise. The accumulation of debt in fragile economies is of particular concern. We believe that in such times, the international community must rise above narrow national agendas. India, for its part, is taking exceptional measures in exceptional times. We do so when we send 50,000 metric tons of wheat and multiple tranches of medicines and vaccines to Afghanistan. When we extend credits of $3.8 billion to Sri Lanka for fuel, essential commodities, and trade settlement. When we supply 10,000 metric tons of food aid and vaccine shipments to Myanmar, when we fill the gap in humanitarian needs left unaddressed by political complexity. Whether it is disaster response or humanitarian assistance, India has stood strong, contributing particularly to those nearest to us. Excellencies, the world as we knew it is poised for transformational changes. It has been impacted in recent times by a succession of shocks, each of them significant by itself. The COVID pandemic called into question the over-centralized nature of globalization and has led all of us to seek greater resilience and reliability of supply chains. The repercussions of the ongoing Ukraine conflict have further heightened economic stresses, especially on food and energy. Climate events have added to disruption that the world is already facing. As for the promise of technology, it has certainly multiplied our capabilities, but also added to our vulnerabilities. Trust and transparency are legitimate expectations of a more digitized world. The quest to create a better global order would necessarily have to address all these issues. Among them, some are clearly more existential in nature and necessitate intense coordination by the international community. Climate action and climate justice are particularly noteworthy in this respect. In their pursuit, India has worked with partners on the International Solar Alliance, the One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative, and the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. We stand ready to support any collective and equitable endeavor to protect our environment and to further global wellness. Lifestyle for environment, or LIFE, as declared by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Glasgow on the sidelines of COP26, is our homage to Mother Nature. India remains deeply committed to fighting climate change under the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement. We do so on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities in the light of different national circumstances. We have announced our updated nationally determined contributions after COP26. Excellencies, India's steadfast commitment to South-South cooperation is by now well established and well recognized. Our approach is based on principles of mutual respect and national ownership, with a commitment to sustainable development for all. As we begin the G20 presidency this December, we are sensitive to the challenges faced by developing countries. India will work with other G20 members to address serious issues of debt, of economic growth, food and energy security, and particularly of environment. The reform of governance of multilateral financial institutions will continue to be one of our core priorities. Madam President, India would be completing its tenure as a member of the Security Council this year. In our term, we have acted as a bridge on some serious but divisive issues confronting the Council. We have also focused on concerns such as maritime security, peacekeeping, and counterterrorism. Our contributions range from providing technology with a human touch to ensuring safety and security of UN peacekeepers. As the chair of the Counter-Terrorism Committee this year, India would be hosting its special meeting in Mumbai and New Delhi. I invite all member states to participate in it. We need to create a global architecture that responds to the new tech tools deployed against open, diverse, and pluralistic societies. Having borne the brunt of cross-border terrorism for decades, India firmly advocates a zero-tolerance approach. In our view, there is no justification for any act of terrorism regardless of motivation, and no rhetoric, however sanctimonious, can ever cover up bloodstains. The United Nations responds to terrorism by sanctioning its perpetrators. Those who politicize the UNSC 1267 sanctions regime, sometimes even to the extent of defending proclaimed terrorists, they do so at their own peril. Believe me, they advance neither their own interests nor indeed their reputation. India has always espoused a cooperative, inclusive, and consultative approach to international relations. We believe that multipolarity, rebalancing, fair globalization, and reformed multilateralism cannot be kept in abeyance. The call for reformed multilateralism, with reforms of the Security Council at its core, enjoys considerable support among UN members. It does so because of the widespread recognition that the current architecture is anachronistic and ineffective. It is also perceived as deeply unfair, denying entire continents and regions a voice in a forum that deliberates their future. India is prepared to take up greater responsibilities, but it seeks, at the same time, to ensure that the injustice faced by the Global South is decisively addressed. Our call is to allow serious negotiations on such a critical matter to proceed sincerely. They must not be blocked by procedural tactics. Naysayers cannot hold the IGN process hostage in perpetuity. In these turbulent times, it is essential that the world listens to more voices of reason and experiences more acts of goodwill. India is willing and able on both counts. We believe and advocate that this is not an era of war or of conflict. On the contrary, it is a time for development and for cooperation. Madam President, in the past, this august assembly has served as a meeting point of views and as a catalyst for action. It is vital that we continue to believe in the promise of diplomacy and the need for international cooperation. Therefore, Madam President, let us strive to return to the course of seeking peace, progress, and prosperity. I thank you.
Visit our site, EnglishSpeechChannel.com, for exclusive access to video transcripts, offline audio, English lessons, and private classes. Don't forget to explore our free and new ebooks. Also, subscribe to our weekly newsletter for the latest updates. Links in the description below. Thanks for your support.
You think champions are made in the arena? Who says champions are born in arenas? They rise from the streets. The streets remember champions.
And dark! इमेजिनेशन कभी रुकनी नहीं चाहिए, तो पढ़ाई सिर्फ बुक्स और नोटबुक्स तक लिमिटेड क्यों रहे? इलेक्ट्रॉनिक स्मार्ट के बैक टू स्कूल ऑफर्स के साथ अपने बच्चे को दीजिए एक स्मार्ट स्टार्ट। लैपटॉप खरीदिए और 25 स्टूडेंट्स में से एक बनने का मौका पाइए और जीतिए ₹9,999 की स्कॉलरशिप। साथ ही पाइए फ्री लैपटॉप बैग, ईयरबड्स और लंच बॉक्स। थिंक लैपटॉप, थिंक इलेक्ट्रॉनिक स्मार्ट।
Father D'Souza, General D'Souza, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here under false pretenses. I must be the only one here who has never been into a college. General D'Souza has told you all about me. I'm most appreciative of his kind words. My only regret is that my wife wasn't here to hear them. She would have treated me with greater respect. And when I say I'm uneducated, I really mean it. I must be the only member of my family who isn't a graduate. I managed to do my inter-science. I got a 3rd division, mushkil se. Anyway, it's nice being in this hall with all the academics and all the educated people. And I take this opportunity of inaugurating your Silver Jubilee series on leadership. I don't know what one does for inauguration, but may I say that I have inaugurated the thing. For a long time, I've been watching the scene in India very carefully. Wherever I go, whenever I pick up a newspaper, I find there are shortages. There's a shortage of fuel, there's a shortage of food, there is a shortage of foreign exchange, there is a shortage of housing, shortage of schools, colleges, everywhere. And everybody talks about these shortages. But the one shortage which is responsible for all these shortages is generally glossed over, which is the shortage of leadership. Father, don't misunderstand me, and gentlemen of the press, please don't misquote me, which you are always capable of doing and which you continue doing. When I talk of shortage of leadership, I do not mean just political leadership. I mean leadership in every walk of life. Whether it's political, administrative, in educational institutions, in our sports organizations, in our industry, amongst labor, amongst the law and order contingents, there is a shortage of leadership. I do not know whether leaders are born or leaders are made. There is a school of thought which says leaders are born. Father, we have a population of 780 million people, and we procreate at the rate of 1 Australia every year. And yet, there is a shortage of leadership. So if those of you who think that leaders are born and who contribute to that theory, may I suggest you throw away all Planned Parenthood and really let yourselves go. If leaders are not born, can leaders be made? It is my view that give me a man with reasonable common sense and decency, you can make a leader out of him. What are the attributes of leadership? There are many attributes. The cardinal attribute for leadership is professional knowledge and professional competence. Now you will agree with me that you cannot be born with professional knowledge, even if you are the child of a minister, the son of a member of parliament, or the progeny of a field marshal. Professional knowledge has to be acquired the hard way. It is a constant study. Professors, engineers, architects, lawyers, solicitors, doctors, they all study their professions continuously. They all contribute to magazines, to newsprints, to all sorts of things. But we in India, as soon as we reach positions of power, whether it's ministerial, secretarial, armed forces, or anywhere else, we think we are the repository of all knowledge. Professional knowledge has to be acquired the hard way. And without professional knowledge, you can never have professional competence. And if you haven't got professional competence, you cannot be a leader. I wonder, those civilian gentlemen who have been charged with the security of this country, whether they have ever read a book on the military profession. I wonder if they know the difference between a gun or a howitzer. I remember a minister one day coming to me. I'd left being the army chief then, and said, and I will talk to you in his own language, Zara batao, ye howitzer kya cheez hoti hai? And I said, what are you talking about, howitzer? Then I discovered that he meant a howitzer. And I said, well, why are you asking me? Why don't you ask the army chief and others? He said, kaise पूछे उनसे? मैं minister हूँ. तेरे से तो पूछ लेता हूँ. तू जानता है कि मैं बेवकूफ हूँ. I wonder if they can distinguish a mortar from a mortar, or a gorilla from a gorilla, although a great many resemble the latter. Ladies and gentlemen, professional knowledge is a sine qua non of leadership. You have to have professional competence if you are expected to lead anything. It doesn't matter whether you are in the army, whether you are in the teaching profession, whether you are in industry. Unless you have professional competence and professional knowledge, you cannot be a leader. And it has to be acquired the hard way. You've got to study all your life. What takes me to the next attribute? The ability to make up your mind and take a decision. And having taken that decision, accepting full responsibility for it. Those of us who have suffered at the hands of superiors who cannot take a decision know what it's like. An act of omission is much worse than an act of commission. An act of commission can be put right, even if the decision is wrong, by colleagues, by subordinates, by somebody. But an act of omission cannot be put right. Why does a person not take a decision? Because he lacks confidence. Why does he lack confidence? Because he lacks professional knowledge and competence. Eustace will tell you that when I was the army chief, I'd go around asked my generals, what are you doing about this? And he said, sir, I've been thinking, I've been considering. And then I produced for myself a manic Shawism. And Father, will you forgive my language? I used to say, if you must be a bloody fool, be one quickly. Take a decision and then accept full responsibility for it. Do you know how much money is lost in the country because somebody won't take a decision? Costs escalate, papers lie in somebody's place for days, for months, for years. And when they finally take a decision, the cost of a project, the cost of something has gone up tenfold. Who suffers? We, the people of India, suffer. Second requisite for leadership, the ability to make up one's mind, take a decision, and then stand about it. It's your decision. What comes next? Absolute justice and impartiality. Those of us who have dealt with masses of men, and I've dealt with over 1 million men in my time, know the value of this. Absolute justice and impartiality. No man likes being punished, and yet men will accept punishment if they know that everybody who commits that sort of a crime gets the same sort of punishment. They will take it stoically. They may not like it, they may not like you, but they will respect you. No man likes being superseded, and yet people will accept supersession if they know that it's been done fairly and they've been superseded by somebody who is better than them. But not because he happens to be a minister's son or related to Father D'Souza or the field marshal's wife's current boyfriend. Men will accept supersession. They may not like it, but they will do it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very important in our country. We have tremendous pressures. We have large families. We have fathers, mothers, uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces, their fathers, mothers, etc. We have pressures from them. We have pressures from members of parliament. We have pressures from all sorts of people. And we lack the courage. This is very, very important for us. Courage or physical courage. Were I talking to a lot of soldiers, I would lay emphasis on physical courage. But since I'm only talking to a handful of soldiers, and mostly civilians, I will lay emphasis on moral courage. What is moral courage? Moral courage is the ability to distinguish right from wrong. And having distinguished that, you must have the courage to stand up and say your piece, irrespective of what your superior thinks, irrespective of your colleagues, irrespective of your subordinates. You must have the courage to say so. A yes man is a horrible man. He must be shunned. He is a disgrace. He may rise very high. He may become a minister. He may become a field marshal. but he will never, never become a leader. He will be used by his superiors. He will be disliked by his colleagues, and his subordinates have no respect for them. Moral courage is essential. Now, since you wanted to know some examples of moral courage from my past, I will give you a little story. In 1970, when General Yahya Khan put all the pressure on East Pakistan as it was then, and refugees started coming to India, there was a cabinet meeting. I remember the date very well, 28th of April. I was summoned. I had a very strong Prime Minister and Mrs. Gandhi, who ranted and raved at me, said, "What are you doing about it? I've got so many refugees. The Chief Minister of Bengal has just sent me a telegram. The Chief Minister of Tripura has done this. The Chief Minister of Assam is writing that there are more Bengalis there than their own population. What are you doing about it?" And I said, "Nothing. It's got nothing to do with me." And she said, "I want you to go in and take action." And I said, "Do you know what that means, Prime Minister?" And she said, "No." I said, "It means war." And she said, "I don't mind if there's war." So I said, "May I please quote from the Bible, the first book, the first chapter, the first verse? God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. And you say, 'Let there be war,' there be war. Are you ready?" I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. It is not the right time to go in. The monsoon will break very shortly, and the whole of East Pakistan will be a swamp. I will not be able to operate. The Air Force will not be able to operate. April is a month when we glean the harvest. And the Agriculture Minister was Mr. Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed. And I said, "I will require every railway wagon, I will require every train, I will require all the road space to move my troops. And you will not be able to move your harvest. And then if there is a famine, don't blame me." And I said, the passes in the Himalayas start opening now, the snow melts. And then if the Chinese give us an ultimatum, I will have to fight on two fronts. And then the External Affairs Minister, a Khalsa, Sardar Swaran Singh, said, "Do you think China will give ultimatum?" And I said, "You are the foreign minister, you tell me." And then my own minister, Jagjeevan Ram, who couldn't call me Sam, who used to call me Sham. He said, "Sham, maan jao na." I said, "You ko manne ki baat hai? I'm telling you what the facts are." And I said, "If you want me to do this, Prime Minister, I guarantee you 100% defeat. Now, Prime Minister, give me your orders." And there was dead silence. And she turned round and said, "The cabinet will meet at 4 o'clock. This happened at 10:30 in the morning. So, as the cabinet ministers walked out, I being the junior most man there, was the last to go, she said, "Chief, will you stay behind?" So I shut the door and I said, "Prime Minister, before you speak, do you wish me to send in my resignation on grounds of health, mental or physical?" And she said, "Oh, sit down." He said, "Everything you told me correct?" I said, "It's my job to fight. It's my job to tell you. If your father in 1962 had me as his commander-in-chief, the country would not have been disgraced. The army would not have been beaten. But the army chief did not have moral courage. of turning around and telling him he wasn't ready. So she said, all right, you know what I want? And I said, yes, I know what you want. And I must be allowed to do it my own way. And she said, all right, you know what I want. So ladies and gentlemen, there's a very thin line between becoming a field marshal and being dismissed. I just gave you an illustration of moral courage. Of course, I didn't worry very much because my wife had money. If I'd gone, she would have looked after. She would have looked after me. So much for moral courage. Now I come to physical courage. Fear is a natural phenomenon like hunger and sex. Anyone who says he is not frightened is a liar, except perhaps the Gorkha. Everyone is frightened. It is one thing to be frightened and quite another to show fear. It's when your knees are knocking and your teeth are chattering and you're about to make your own geography. That's when the real leader comes out. If once you show fear in front of men that you may be commanding, it doesn't matter whether they're soldiers, they are clerks, they're labor, there are students. Once you show fear, you should quit. Now again, General D'Souza said, I must give some examples from my own life. This was in Burma in 1942. I was commanding a Sikh company, big tough chaps, very fond of them. I had a man called Sohan Singh, big man, stood about 6'4". He had been promoted many times to Lance Naik, to Naik, and every time, because he was a Badmash, he was broken. So we had a promotion conference with the commanding officer, and Sohan Singh's name came up, and I said, no use making him, he'll be broken tomorrow. So he was passed over. The conference finished, names were published. I came back to my Basha, where my company was in the jungle, and I found my senior Subedar, Balwant Singh, terribly worried. And he said, Saab, Sohan Singh ko kaid kar diya. I said, क्यों क्या हुआ? उसने बोला कि आज आपको साहब गोली मारेगा. I said, oh, अच्छा, पेशी होगा. So a stool was put in, a table was put there, and Sohan Singh was marched up in front of me. Sohan Singh was at that time a light machine gunner, and light machine gunners carried pistols, and his pistol was taken away from him. So he was marched up in front of me, the usual charge was read out, and I said, Sohan Singh, क्या बात है? साहब गलती हो गया. So I said, तुमने बोला कि तू हमको गोली मारेगा. So I picked up the pistol, loaded it, walked up to him, handed the pistol to him. I said, तेरा दिल है मारने का, मारो. And he said, नहीं साहब गलती हो गया. So I gave him a tight slap. I said, case dismissed, जाओ भागो. I went off to the mess, had my dinner, came back, and everybody in the company was very worried. And the Subedar Saab, Balwant Singh said, नहीं साहब आज रात आपको गोली मारेगा. So I shouted out, Sohan Singh किधर है? Sohan Singh came along. I said, Sohan Singh आज रात मेरा बाशा पर तुम सेंट्री होगा, और कल सुबह 5 बजे 1 मग्गा चाय और 1 मग्गा गर्म पानी दाढ़ी बनाने के लिए. कोई शक? बेशक, भागो. And I went in there. I was woken up in the morning by Sohan Singh with a mug of tea and a mug of hot water, and he followed me like a lamb throughout the conflict. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you think I wasn't frightened, you are mistaken. I was terrified. But if I hadn't done that, If I hadn't done that and put Son Singh in the clink or something like that, everybody would have said, Dekha, hamara saab darta hai. Just an example of this. How often during riots and all that, some young sergeant with nothing but a little stick in his hand has walked in and quelled everything by showing courage. So physical courage is essential to leadership. You needn't be foolhardy like I was. I was very young. I don't know whether I do it today. But physical courage is essential. That takes me to the other attribute, loyalty. Now, does loyalty require very much explanation? We all expect loyalty from our subordinates. Do we give loyalty to them? Loyalty is a two-way thing. We expect loyalty, we have to give loyalty. Do we give loyalty to our colleagues? So remember that for leadership, you expect loyalty, you've got to give loyalty. Time is running short. There are other attributes. Remember, leadership is nothing else but management of men and resources. Management of men. Men have problems. Men in numbers can be very nasty, and a leader must be able to deal with them very firmly. When people misbehave, like they are misbehaving in Bombay these days, it's no use saying Jai Hind to them. You've got to deal with them very, very firmly. But you must never forget that men have problems. They have human problems. They have problems of debt, of family problems. They get easily despondent. And therefore, the leader must have a human touch. He must have a sense of humor to get them out of their despondency. He must have the gift of the gab. Unfortunately, our leaders have the gift of the gab, but they have no sense of humor. Further, men and women, generally speaking, like their leader to be a bit of a man, a bit of a lad. Take examples from history. Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, you will agree he was a great leader. When he came to Rome, the senators used to their wives. Take Napoleon. He had his Josephine and Marie Antoinette and Georgette and Paulette and any number of things. And you will agree he was a great leader. Take the Duke of Wellington. The night before the Battle of Waterloo, in his chambers there were more women of luscious proportions than staff officers. And he was a great leader. Do you know, sir, a thought has just struck me. All these three people that I've talked about had one thing in common. They all had long noses. If my time is not up, can I crave your indulgence and talk for another 10 minutes? Ladies and gentlemen, no amount of leadership will put things right. There are two other aspects that we Indians must know and we lack badly. One is discipline and the second is character. What is discipline? Discipline is a code of conduct for decent living in society one with the other. Who lays down this code of conduct? Not the Prime Minister, not Parliament. Of course, it's laid down in the Army Act. But I'm not trying to impose the Army Act on you. This code of conduct has come to us from father to son, from mother to daughter, from times immemorial. It's in the Bible, it's in the Gita, it's in the words of Nanak, in the sayings of Muhammad and Buddha. It's all come down. It's been refined as cultures have changed. Again, let me illustrate this by example. Non-punctuality is an act of ill discipline which is injurious to the state, injurious to its people. Some time ago, sir, I was invited to an university, as also my wife, unlike today. I was called there at a convocation at 5 o'clock in the evening. And having been in the army for 50 years, telling the driver, go slow, go fast, arrived there at 5 o'clock in the evening. I was received by the Vice Chancellor and his lady, the Union Secretary, escorted to the dais. My wife too was asked to sit on the dais, and she politely refused, saying that she'd much rather sit down, as this is the only opportunity she has to look up to me. And as usual, I was garlanded. The Vice Chancellor sang my praises and asked me to talk to these people. There were about 5,000 boys and girls there, plus deans, plus professors, plus lecturers, everybody. And as I got up to get to the desk, to the lectern, the Vice Chancellor says to me, sotto voce, Field Marshal, a fortnight ago we had invited a VIP to the same function. He was allowed to stand at the lectern for exactly 15 seconds. I wish you good luck. I said to myself, had the Vice Chancellor said this in his letter of invitation, I wonder whether I would have come. Anyway, I got up to the lectern and I addressed the gathering for the amount of time that I was allowed. I was heard in pin drop silence, and at the end of it, I got a thunderous applause. The Vice Chancellor and his lady, the deans, professors, lecturers, the student body, and even my wife stood up and gave me a standing ovation. I was most relieved. Although my wife told me afterwards that I looked pale. After the usual vote of thanks, etc., we went out into the gardens where refreshments were given. And I, having an eye for a pretty girl, walked up to a pert little thing, wearing lovely jeans, tight-fitting, and I started a conversation, which ran as follows. I said, my dear, why were you so kind to me today, all of you? I not having the looks of Rajesh Khanna or Amitabh Bachchan, or a speaker like M.G. Ramachandran, when only the other day you were so rude to a VIP. And she said, I quote, "Oh, Field Marshal, that dreadful man. We had invited him at 5 o'clock. He turned up at 6. He brought with him a bevy of security people who pushed us aside and took their places where we should be sitting. He brought with him 2 of his brats, grandchildren probably. He was too old to have those kids that side. But you never know. He was received by the Vice Chancellor and lady. He was the Union President garlanded him, and he demanded garlands for his two brats. The Union President, being very flexible, diverted the garlands for the Vice Chancellor and his lady to these brats. And then the Vice Chancellor sang his praises, saying how fortunate we were that he had come here, that he has done so much for the country. And all the while, this man sat there. He had come unwashed, unshaven, wearing a dhoti, exposing 4/5 of his leg, scratching away. And the Vice Chancellor said that the worthy had been to jail. When he said that, the girl said, I almost shouted he should be there now. Then the Vice Chancellor asked him to go to the lectern and to talk to us. So he picked up the lemonade or limca or whatever was there, which belonged to his female offspring, and took a sip, which started a howl. When that subsided, the worthy came to the lectern and said, friends and well-wishers, I have not had time to prepare my speech, but my secretary has written something for me, and he produced a whole heap of paper. He said, without any premeditation, without any thought, we made his stay very short. I unquote. Sir, I thank my lucky stars that 50 years in the army had made me come on time, that I'd been brought up to shave in the morning and shave in the evening if there was a function, that I had a lounge suit on, and although I have very nice legs, I didn't expose them, that I didn't suffer from itch or eczema to indulge in the scratching of the unmentionable. Now do you see what I mean by ill discipline? Had the worthy come on time, according to the program, talked to the people and given them advice, can you imagine what a lot of good it would have done? Instead of that, his act of ill discipline produced more ill discipline. Now, this is not a matter to be laughed at and forgotten. We people in India are terribly ill disciplined. We think because we've got freedom that we can do what we like. I do not stop you from criticizing, to standing up for your rights. I think it's your duty to do it. But what I abhor are the acts that we've gone into because we've got freedom. Why do we have to spit pan all over? Why do we have to write on doors and things? Why do we have to keep staircases dirty and filthy? Why do we have to throw garbage in somebody else's compound? These are all acts of ill discipline. It is because of these acts of ill discipline that you have corruption, you have smuggling, you have all sorts of things. Even animals in Tanzania are better disciplined. I went there 4 years ago and I saw lions, lionesses, zebras, etc. They were all so disciplined. If the lion wanted to do his stuff, he went behind cover. He didn't spit. I came back from Tanzania. I arrived at Bombay airport. I cleared my baggage, and as I was walking out, there was a big, fat slob of a man who squirted damn pan on my trousers. And when I when I gave him a tight kick, he was most indignant. He didn't think he'd done any wrong. Why? Why do we tolerate it? So much for discipline. Sir, everybody's been extremely well disciplined so far. Will you give me your indulgence for just another few minutes? I said character. By character, I don't mean the sort of thing which the father will preach to you. Of course you must be honest. Of course you must be truthful. Of course you mustn't covet thy neighbor's wife. Not when father is listening. Of course you mustn't. All that is part of character. But I mean something bigger. It's knowing yourself, knowing what you really are. Unfortunately, we lack that sort of character. And what little we have is denuded by our fans, by the sycophants around us, by the hangers-on. Again, let me illustrate this by an example. Some years ago, Hollywood produced a picture of the great violinist and composer Paganini. And they got a very handsome actor, tall, good actor, who had some knowledge of the violin to take the part of Paganini. And he was drilled to perfection, so that when that little cadenza was played and screened, the critics raved over it. Raved at the movement of his fingers and of his bow. And this man's fans, sycophants, hangers-on, went on telling him that he was greater than Menuhin, greater than Heifetz, greater than Chrysler. And the man started believing it. And it took 8 months in a psychiatric home to rid him of this delusion. Do you know, sir, after the 1971 conflict, my fans, my hangers-on, the sycophants around me kept telling me, sir, you are the greatest general the century has produced. You are better than Rommel. You are better than Guderian. Auchinleck was nothing. And just as I was beginning to believe it, the Prime Minister created me Field Marshal and sent me off to the Nilgiris. And a hard-headed, no-nonsense wife deprived one more inmate of a psychiatric home. I thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm at your mercy. You can ask me any question you like, personal, pertinent, or impertinent. I'm getting deaf, so you'll have to come nearer me.
Punctuality is very essential for this engagement was announced at 6:30.
You're quite right, sir. I was ready. I was told I was going to be picked up at 6 o'clock. I was ready, waiting. In fact, the people who organized the function came up to me. Just came out of my bath and said, General D'Souza says, please do not come before 6:45. So will you hang around till 6:30 and then we'll bring you here. Not my fault. I was there absolutely on time. Please blame General D'Souza. And he had a reason that everybody works till 6 o'clock. Traffic is also there, and therefore he decided it was going to be 6:45.
I would like to add that
we got to go into East Pakistan. None. Militarily. You cannot go into anybody's country. But we had 9 million refugees. We, in our own country, are starving. We don't have enough clothes, we don't have enough medical attention, we don't have enough food, we don't have enough schooling. But we had 9 million people, through no fault of our own. The Prime Minister of India, went around the whole world telling everybody that I have nothing against Pakistan. In fact, I want Pakistan to be strong. What crime have we committed that we should have 9 million people of somebody else's country in my country? You Americans, if 2 Indians go there, you kick up a row. You, the French, won't accept anybody coming in. The British don't. Why are you asking me to keep 9 million men? Yahya Khan is your friend, not mine. Please persuade him to take these people back or create conditions so that they go back. If you don't, then I shall have no recourse but to ask, I was a general then, General Manekshaw, to create those conditions. Now, we had no intention, no desire to go there. All we wanted was these people to go back. And they would never go back so long as the Pakistan army was doing what it was in East Pakistan. I certainly spoke about it. I understood the problem as a soldier and also as an Indian. Now, you asked me about Sri Lanka. The number of refugees that have come in, very small. In fact, they don't want to go back. They're being pushed back. If 2 million camels had come in, perhaps we would have had to take some action. Have I answered that question? Would the young lady stand up? Let me look at her. Don't be shy. Oh, thank you, dear. What steps are taken from the moment this is leadership has been our profession for thousands of years. For thousands of years. The army has provided the leadership. From the moment the man joins, he comes into an environment of discipline and somebody who is his leader there, and he learns. We don't have courses for leadership. It is by example. If the general officer commanding in chief comes unshaven, you don't expect the others to be shaven, to shave. But because he is shaven, properly washed, properly clothed, everybody else is. If the general officer or the colonel takes bribes, then you don't expect his people not to take bribes. But he doesn't take bribes. Now you ask me, why doesn't he take bribes? Everybody else in India does. And the answer is very simple. It's environment and also fear. If I gave an order and one man disobeyed it, he could be tried by court-martial and given 2 years imprisonment. If 2 men disobeyed my orders, it is considered as mutiny. He is tried by general court-martial, and given 14 years imprisonment. But in civil life, who cares? The policeman takes a bribe. The inspector takes a bribe. Somebody disobeys orders, what happens? You suspend him. He gets a writ petition by paying 25 rupees to any wakil. His case drags on. Eventually he is reinstated, probably gets promotion. But in the case of the army, there's an environment from the moment he joins, plus fear. There is great fear. We Indians are alleged or supposed to be very religious people. If you read your own religious book, whether it be the Bible or the Gita or the Granth Sahib or the Quran, you automatically have discipline, self-discipline. From your childhood, if your parents are doing their duty, you get discipline into you. If you have any pride in yourself, you have discipline in you. So, talking of self-discipline, there it is. The Roman Catholic Church has done a great deal, for bringing discipline into the world. It has erred at times, but it has done a great deal for bringing self-discipline. One of the things is the confession. That has brought a great deal of self-discipline in people. You can confess to yourself. When you go to bed at night, when you say your prayers, confess to yourself what wrong you have done. Otherwise, I can't give you any answer for self-discipline. Yes, sir. Yes.
Sit-down interview as such on a question-answer session. So there are many questions that I have, but I understand there's a time constraint. And so I will get straight to the point on the Agnipath scheme. Was there any need to tinker with a scheme which has been working with a process of recruitment and a system of hierarchy which has been in place for so long?
Well, thank you very much for this interview. I'm grateful to you, and it's a very contemporary subject which is needs to be deliberated and discussed. And I'll tell you, firstly, we must understand security is a very dynamic concept. It cannot remain static. Security is only in relation to the environment in which we have to protect our national interests and in which we have to protect all our national assets. In this context, if we see, the whole world is undergoing a great change. The wars are changing their complexion. Increasingly, we are going towards a contactless war. We are also going towards a war against the invisible enemy. Technology is taking over at a very rapid speed. So what was good for yesterday is not necessarily good for tomorrow. जो हम कल कर रहे थे, वही भविष्य में भी करते रहें तो हम सुरक्षित रहेंगे, ये संभव नहीं है. यदि हमें कल की तैयारी करनी है तो हमें परिवर्तित होना पड़ेगा. आवश्यक इसलिए था कि ये सारी का सारा जो एनवायरनमेंट है भारत के चारों तरफ सारे संसार के अंदर में वो बदल रहा है. दूसरा, इसको एक परिप्रेक्ष्य में देखने की ज़रूरत है. देयर इज अ नीड टू लुक एट इट इन ए पर्सपेक्टिव. ये अग्निपथ अपने में कोई योजना नहीं है. यह अग्निपथ अपने में कोई स्टैंड अलोन साइलो नहीं है. प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी जब सत्ता में आए 2014 में, तो उनकी सबसे बड़ी प्राथमिकता, वन ऑफ हिज प्राइम प्रायोरिटी वाज हाउ टू मेक इंडिया सिक्योर एंड स्ट्रांग. And that required many avenues, that required many steps, multitude of them. Broadly speaking, they come under the four heads. It requires equipment, it requires change in systems and structures, it requires change in technology, it requires change in manpower, policies, and they have got to be futuristic. कल और भविष्य की तरफ देखते हुए हमारे को इन चारों क्षेत्रों में अपनी प्रगति करनी है. आपने देखा होगा, अगर आप पिछले 8 सालों के अंदर में देखें तो स्ट्रक्चरल एंड सिस्टमेटिक चेंजेस बहुत सारे हुए हैं. मान लिया जाए कि CDS का वो था, पिछले 22-25 साल से पड़ा हुआ था, ये डिमांड थी, ग्रुप ऑफ मिनिस्टर्स की रिकमेंडेशन थी, लेकिन राजनीतिक इच्छा शक्ति न होने के कारण ये इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं हुई. हमारे यहाँ साइबर थ्रेट्स पैदा होने शुरू हो गए थे. डिफेंस साइबर एजेंसी का निर्माण एक स्ट्रक्चरल एंड सिस्टमिक चेंज था. डिफेंस स्पेस एजेंसी का आज से 5 साल 10 साल पुराने सैनिक इसकी कल्पना भी नहीं कर सकते थे कि आज हमारी डिफेंस एजेंसीज की अपनी स्पेस की एक इंडिपेंडेंट एजेंसी है, एक इंडिपेंडेंट वो है. इसी प्रकार से बहुत सारे जो सिस्टम्स एंड स्ट्रक्चर्स भी चेंज किए गए. दूसरा जो क्षेत्र था जो है इक्विपमेंट का. आज हम आपने देखा होगा सरकार ने अपनी सेना के लिए कितने नए तरह के वेपन्स, हमारे पास में जो असॉल्ट राइफल थी जिस पर हम डिपेंड कर रहे थे 7.62, वो शायद इतनी कारगर नहीं थी, अब उसको रिप्लेस किया जा रहा है भारत में बनी हुई AK-203 के साथ में। ये एक बहुत ही कामगर और दुनिया की वन ऑफ द बेस्ट असॉल्ट राइफल्स होगी। इसी प्रकार से अगर हम देखें, चाहे वो पनडुब्बियों के क्षेत्र में है, चाहे वो पर्सनल इक्विपमेंट ऑफ द सोल्जर है, चाहे वो एयरक्राफ्ट्स हैं, हमने लाइट कॉम्बैट एयरक्राफ्ट का और अब एक 5th जनरेशन एयरक्राफ्ट एमका का हम निर्माण कर रहे हैं। तो इक्विपमेंट के क्षेत्र में एक बहुत प्रगति की जा रही है। और एक है टेक्नोलॉजी का फील्ड जो सबसे ज़्यादा कॉम्पिटिटिव फील्ड है। इसमें पैसा भी बहुत लगता है और बहुत कुशल वैज्ञानिकों की आवश्यकता होती है। वी नीड द टॉप साइंटिस्ट हु आर ग्लोबली कॉम्पिटिटिव एंड अदर्स। देखिए, इस सरकार के टाइम के ऊपर में अंतरिक्ष के अंदर में जो बड़े और नए संकट आए, सारे का सारा वारफेयर जो है वो सैटेलाइट कंट्रोल होगा। आपका जो हवाई जहाज चलेगा या आपके जो रडार्स काम करेंगे वो सब सैटेलाइट कम्युनिकेशन एंड सैटेलाइट कंट्रोल होंगे।
पर सर, ये अग्निवीर जो हैं उनकी ट्रेनिंग सिर्फ 1 या 3 महीने की होगी। मतलब आर्मी चीफ ने कहा है दैट बाय दिसंबर रिक्रूटमेंट हो जाएगी और मार्च तक डिप्लॉयमेंट हो जाएगी। ये कहाँ से आप उनको ट्रेनिंग दे सकते हैं रेडार या सबमरीन के लिए? हाउ टू रन इट, हाउ विल यू ट्रेन देम इतनी जल्दी?
मैं आपको इस पॉइंट पर आता हूँ, ये बहुत अच्छा पॉइंट है, मैं आपको अभी बताता हूँ। बट आई जस्ट टेल यू, बिफोर दैट लेट मी टेल यू दैट इज इन द फील्ड ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी वी हैव डन अ ग्रेट दिस थिंग। वी हैव गॉट लाइट कॉम्बैट एयरक्राफ्ट, वी हैव गॉट एमका, वी हैव गॉट सबमरीन्स दैट वी हैव मेड, वी हैव गिवन द न्यूक्लियर सबमरीन्स दैट वी हैव लॉन्च्ड, एंड वी आल्सो बिकेम a space power. We have hit at the satellites. And the fourth pedestal of it is the manpower reorganization. Now, in the manpower reorganization, the point that you have raised was that is we must have a young, agile, fit, well-trained army.
Okay.
It is a contradiction. It's a paradox. कि भारत का वो देश जिसकी सबसे यंग पॉपुलेशन है, उसकी एक ओल्डेस्ट आर्मी है। जहाँ पर 2030 के अंदर में 50% लोग 25 साल से कम उम्र के होंगे, उसी देश के अंदर में जो सेना की एवरेज एज है वो दुनिया के सबसे अधिक एजेड आर्मीज में से है। तो हमें उसको ठीक करना था। अब आपने प्रश्न किया कि यदि हमारे को अग्निवीर बनाते हैं या हम अग्निपथ के रास्ते पर चलते हैं तो किस प्रकार से हम उनकी ट्रेनिंग और उनको इक्विप कर पाएंगे इन नई चुनौतियों का, टू मीट द न्यू चैलेंजेस एंड द थ्रेट्स। विल दे बी कॉम्पिटेंट इनफ? नाउ लेट मी टेल यू वन थिंग। फर्स्ट पॉइंट यू मस्ट अंडरस्टैंड, अग्निवीर विल नेवर कंस्टिट्यूट द होल आर्मी। अग्निवीर केवल पहले 4 साल में रिक्रूटेड जवान होंगे। बाकी लोग जो होंगे जिनका की प्रोपोर्शन एक बहुत बड़ा होगा, वो अनुभवी होंगे, they will be experienced, they will be trained and other, and these agniveers, those who become the regulars eventually will go through more intensive training, will acquire the experience, will become more battle worthy and more experienced over the period of time. So Indian Army at any point of time will have a large number of people who, though recruited as Agniveers, but had been specially selected for their suitability, for their fitness, for their agility, for their motivation and for their aptitude for the job, and also did not have that sort of the personal problems by which they would like to leave the army and settle for something which is more stable and a personal life. So these persons will be well trained. So it is not only that the Indian Army will be having only this component. Yes, Indian Army will constitute at the level of the Jawans and the ORs who had been recruited through the process of Agniveer, specially selected, whose work, whose performance has been monitored and digitally monitored through various complex processes over a long period of time. Selection is one part. Even when you select people who are physically fit and others, it's a very small this thing. But when we observe them over a longer period of time, we are able to see that what sort of material do we have which will make the ideal soldier for the future. Imagine the army of 15 years hence, in which all those who have been recruited have come through the special 4 years probation period and then gone and joined the army. See their technical skills, see their motivation, their physical fitness and others. They will all be the people who will probably the cream of the Indian Army.
Right. So my first question will be, I will go later into those who are not being amalgamated, but first about those who are going to be amalgamated into the service. There's already a system of your regiments and corps. will it not demotivate somebody who has gone through the NDA, who's gone through the rigorous training process earlier, and then they'll see them as Johnny come latelys, abhi aaye hain, abhi fauj mein ghus gaye hain, and they're already getting the benefits that we were getting, but we had to put in so much more hard work. So will it cause a disruption, and will they be seen as lesser soldiers?
आप जिम जाते हो, देते हो एक फ्लैट फी, OTT प्लेटफॉर्म्स की फ्लैट फी, वाईफाई का बिल फ्लैट फी, ब्रोकर हर ट्रेड पर चार्ज। 2026 में नॉर्मल लगता है आपको, लेकिन ट्रेडिंग में तो हम ये सालों से एक्सेप्ट कर रहे हैं। स्टॉक्स कार्ड के एक प्लान ने सीन चेंज कर दिया है, स्मार्ट ट्रेडर प्लान। एक बार 699 रुपीज दो और पूरा साल जितने चाहे ट्रेड्स करो, जीरो ब्रोकरेज, कोई एक्स्ट्रा चार्ज नहीं। एक्टिव ट्रेडर हो, इंट्राडे करते हो, कमोडिटी भी करते हो, ऑप्शन भी करते हो, तो ये प्लान आपके लिए बनाया गया है। तो अब करो ट्रेड बेफिक्र, कमेंट करो जीरो, मैं लिंक अभी DM करती हूँ।
क्या आप दुबले पतले कमजोर हैं? आपकी सेहत नहीं बनती, भूख कम लगती है, वजन नहीं बढ़ता? दरअसल मेन बात खाना पीना खाना नहीं है, मेन बात है खाया पिया शरीर को लगना। और अगर खाया पिया लगेगा ही नहीं तो आपकी सेहत बनेगी कैसे? इसलिए हमारी संस्था सन्यासी आयुर्वेदा ने एक ऐसी दवा का निर्माण किया है जो कि आपके लिवर को, आपके पाचन तंत्र को दुरुस्त करने का काम करती है, ताकि आप जो भी खाएं उसका पूरे का पूरा निचोड़ आपके शरीर को लगे, आपकी भूख बढ़े, खाया पिया सही से लगे, नया खून बने, हड्डियों में जान आए, वजन बढ़े और आप मोटे तगड़े खूबसूरत पर्सनैलिटी के मालिक बन जाए। 100% आयुर्वेदिक दवा होती है, इसका शरीर पर कोई भी साइड इफेक्ट, कोई भी नुकसान या दुष्प्रभाव नहीं होता। लड़के लड़कियां दोनों इसका इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं और पहले 15 दिन के अंदर ही आपको इसका फर्क महसूस हो जाएगा। सिर्फ 699 रुपए की पूरे 1 महीने की दवा होती है और आप इसे घर बैठे 01145454545 पर फोन करके दवा मंगवा सकते हैं।
देखिए, सेना में जाने वाला हर रिक्रूट फ्रेश होता है, चाहे वो रेगुलर में जाए, चाहे वो अग्निवीर की तरह जाए, चाहे आज से 15 साल पहले जाता था, उसकी भी पहले 1 महीने की सर्विस होती है, फिर 6 महीने की होती है, फिर 1 साल की होती है। वो शुरू नहीं होता है 15 साल की या 12 साल की सर्विस के साथ में। एक बात, जहाँ तक रेजिमेंट्स का सवाल है, इसमें 2 बातें समझनी चाहिए। ये जो रेजिमेंट्स का कंसेप्ट है, इसको कोई टिंकर नहीं कर रहा है। अगर रेजिमेंट्स हैं तो आर्टिलरी की रेजिमेंट्स रहेंगी, आर्मर्ड कोर की रेजिमेंट्स रहेंगी, इलेक्ट्रिकल मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर्स हैं या इंजीनियर्स हैं या बाकी सारे हैं। ये जो रेजिमेंटल, कभी कभी इन्फेंट्री की कुछ यूनिट्स के अंदर में बारे में लोगों को भ्रम है। पहली बात तो अब कोई कास्ट बेस्ड रेजिमेंट्स बहुत कम बची हैं, सिर्फ 2 या 3 हैं जो कि अभी भी प्योर उसी एरिया के क्षेत्रों को करते हैं। और ये एक कॉलोनियल लेगेसी है। अंग्रेज़ ये चाहते थे कि कोई भी चीज़ पैन इंडिया ना हो, और वो ये चाहते थे कि उनको किसी न किसी वर्ग में बांटा जाए और उस वर्ग या क्षेत्र के प्रतिनिधि के रूप में जाए। उनका कोई नेशनल पर्सपेक्टिव नहीं हो, क्योंकि इससे उनके अपने कॉलोनियल एम्पायर को एक खतरा था। देखिए, मैं आपको बताता हूँ, इसी इंडियन आर्मी को फर्स्ट टाइम ये नेशनल आर्मी के रूप में कब आई? आज़ाद हिंद फौज की तरीके से, व्हेन इट बिकेम द इंडियन नेशनल आर्मी। क्या था उसका? 60,000 की फौज थी। कोई रेजिमेंट थी इनकी? थी रेजिमेंट। इनकी रेजिमेंट थी रानी झांसी रेजिमेंट, इनकी रेजिमेंट थी महात्मा गांधी रेजिमेंट।
नॉट एन अहीर और राजपूत और
ये नहीं थी। और कितना सैक्रिफाइस किया इन्होंने? 60,000 में से 40,000 मारे गए। इतना एट्रिशन हुआ था। दुनिया के अंदर में किसी लड़ाई के अंदर में इतने एट्रिशन एंड कैजुअलिटीज नहीं हुई हैं जितनी इंडियन नेशनल आर्मी ने इम्फाल और कोहिमा के और सिंगापुर के बैटल्स के अंदर में गंवाए हैं। वो किसके लिए लड़ रहे थे? उनमें रेजिमेंटल प्राइड नहीं था क्या? उनके लिए वो नहीं था, वो भारत के लिए लड़ रहे थे। They were the soldiers of India. They called themselves as the Indian National Army.
But so do the regiments here, right now.
That's right. So they will continue.
Okay.
That's what I'm telling you. They will have the nomenclature, there will be the regiment of this. I do not know how this concept has come, that anybody is tinkering with the regimental pride or the regimental ethos. उसका अपना ट्रेडिशन होगा, अगर कोई एक बटालियन है, उसकी अपना एक वेलर है, उसकी अपनी एक हिस्ट्री है, तो वो हमेशा बरकरार रहेगा और उसमें बढ़ोतरी होती जाएगी। अब इसका और हुआ ये है कि हमने ये कहा कि एक ऑल इंडिया कॉम्प्लेक्शन होगा इंडियन आर्मी का। इसको लोगों ने कहा कि रेजिमेंटल सिस्टम खत्म हो गया। रेजिमेंटल सिस्टम खत्म नहीं हुआ। इन्फेंट्री रहेगी, आर्टिलरी रहेगी, आर्मर्ड कोर रहेगा, सिग्नल्स रहेंगे। इन्फेंट्री के अंदर में भी ग्रेनेडियर्स हैं, इनके अंदर में गार्ड्स हैं, रेजिमेंट ऑफ गार्ड्स है। रेजिमेंट ऑफ गार्ड्स में किसका जाति के लोग हैं, कितना स्प्लेंडेड वो है उनका, ग्रेनेडियर्स है, उसमें किस जाति के धर्म के क्षेत्र के लोग हैं। हमारे जो परमवीर चक्र जो है, जब उनको मिला तो ये ग्रेनेडियर्स ने जितने ऑनर्स एंड बैटल ऑनर्स उन्होंने लिए हैं। तो ये सिर्फ हम ये चाहते हैं कि भारत के हर नागरिक, हर यूथ, हर युवा, एवरी यूथ ऑफ दिस कंट्री हु हैज़ गॉट ए डिज़ायर एंड ए मोटिवेशन and feels a sense of commitment to defend the country, he gets an opportunity. His youth, his energy, his talent is plowed towards making this country strong and impregnably defendable.
What happens after those 4 years are over and they don't find space in the services, and they don't find space in the paramilitary? Because the reason I'm asking is कुछ लूज कमेंट्स आए हैं कि वो प्लम्बर, इलेक्ट्रिशियन बन सकते हैं, सिक्योरिटी गार्ड बन सकते हैं। तो फ्यूचर को लेके थोड़ा बहुत एप्रीहेंशन कर लीजिए या डर है लोगों में कि हाउ विल दे बी बेटर ऑफ आफ्टर द 4 years? Will they have a skill set which is market friendly, which they can get jobs?
गायनेकोमेस्टिया का इलाज तो आप सब जानते ही हैं, लेकिन क्या आप गायनेकोमेस्टिया 360 4DX अप्रोच के बारे में जानते हैं? क्या आप चाहेंगे कि अगर आपका ट्रीटमेंट हो रहा है गायनेकोमेस्टिया के लिए, क्योंकि आप शर्ट पहनते हैं अच्छा नहीं लगता, या शर्ट उतारते हैं अच्छा नहीं लगता, या अपने पसंद की जिम वेयर नहीं पहन पा रहे हैं, तो गायनेकोमेस्टिया का ट्रीटमेंट तो चाहिए। जो गायनेकोमेस्टिया 360 टेक्निक है उसमें आपको ज्यादा सेफ्टी, ज्यादा अच्छे रिजल्ट्स, फास्टर रिकवरी और बहुत जल्द बैक टू वर्क, इन सारे एडवांटेजेस की वजह से ही नंबर 1 टेक्निक है।
I think this is one of the biggest misunderstanding that has been created either deliberately or by lack of full knowledge and understanding of this thing. We are talking about a young man who is 22 or 23 years old, has done 4 years of service and now is in the market. Compare him with any other 21, 22 years old man who has not become Agniveer. This person has become disciplined. He has got the capability to work in a team. He has learned skills. He has developed the confidence, and he is trainable. His mind and his vision, he has got an all India perspective. So he is much more equipped to face the society. On top of it, he has been given a qualification that will be +2. That makes him comparable with any other persons in his age group to which the others are joining. So there is no avenue that has been debarred or closed for him. इसके लिए वो सारे रास्ते खुले हैं। उसके बाद उसके पास में 11 लाख रुपए के लगभग पैसा भी है। जिससे वो कोई नया कोर्स कर सकता है, आगे की पढ़ाई कर सकता है, यूनिवर्सिटी में जाना चाहे तो यूनिवर्सिटी की पढ़ाई कर सकता है। उनमें से कोई अगर टेक्निकल स्किल्स ज्वाइन करना चाहे तो पॉलिटेक्निक्स और उसको ज्वाइन कर सकता है। आजकल एवरेज एज सेटलमेंट की अपने करियर में 24-25 साल 26 साल होती है। देखिए आज हम उस ज़माने में हमारे एज स्पैन के साथ में 1 लाइफ 2 कैरियर्स की बात करते हैं, अब तो लोग 1 लाइफ 3 कैरियर्स की बात करते हैं। कंपेयर करें, यही आदमी अगर 15 साल के बाद जाता तो 32, 33, 34 साल का होता। इस वक्त में अब उसको कोई ना ट्रेनेबल है, उसकी एज इतनी भी नहीं है कि वो घर में बैठ जाए, क्योंकि अभी उसकी शादी हुई 3-4 साल हुए हैं। अभी उसके पास कोई छोटा बच्चा है जिसको पढ़ाना भी है। कोई लड़की होगी तो वही 15-20 साल के बाद शादी के लायक होगी। उसके पास में जिम्मेदारियाँ ही जिम्मेदारियाँ हैं। पहले का ज़माना फ़र्क था। ये जो सोल्जर था वो गांव से आता था और गांव वापस चला जाता था। गांव में रहने के लिए उसके पास थोड़ी ज़मीन होती थी और पेंशन पे गुजारा हो जाता था। आज पेंशन पर उसका गुजारा नहीं हो सकता, तो उसको सेकंड कैरियर की आवश्यकता होती है। 34 साल के बाद में इसका 40 साल का जीवन अभी और बचा हुआ है। इस 40 साल के जीवन में ना उसको हम नई ट्रेनिंग दे सकते हैं, ना उसको कहीं पर अगर अब्जॉर्व करें तो वो एक नए कैरियर की नई शुरुआत, नई जोश के साथ में उसको आगे बढ़ा सकता है। तो इसलिए इसको ये रखा गया है कि अगर वो 4 साल के बाद में आते हैं तो उनकी ट्रेनिंग, उनका डिसिप्लिन, उनका बैकग्राउंड, उनका आर्मी का कैरियर उनको समाज में एक ऊंचा स्तर देता है। उसके बाद उनके पास में एजुकेशन भी है और ये टॉप ऑफ इट है कि सरकार ने कहा कि 10% CPMF में होंगे। डिफेंस फोर्सेस के अंदर में जो डिफेंस मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस के अंदर में कोस्ट गार्ड है, बाकी चीज़ें हैं जो कि उनके उसमें अंदर में आती हैं, डिफेंस सर्विस कोर है और जो उसके अंदर में और काफ़ी मिनिस्ट्री का है। अब देखिए ये 10% अग्निवीर का नहीं है, ये 10% उनके यहाँ भर्ती होने वाले लोगों की हैं। तो अगर फर्ज कर लीजिए कि CPMF की भर्ती 40,000 या 50,000 की है तो उसमें 5,000 जाएंगे।
ओके।
या 10% अगर जो उनके 3,000 या 4,000 लोग या 5,000 लोग जो है वो उनके जो उसका 10% नहीं होगा। ये इन नहीं, अब भारत आगे बढ़ रहा है, भारत की प्रगति हो रही है। पहला आदमी अग्निवीर जब रिटायर होगा तो आज से 5 साल के बाद में होगा। उस वक्त भारत की इकोनॉमी 5 ट्रिलियन की इकोनॉमी होगी। प्राइवेट सेक्टर एक नई गति और नई दिशा के साथ में आगे बढ़ेगा। डिफेंस इंडस्ट्रीज जिस तरह से बढ़ रही हैं, बहुत सारे ऐसे काम होंगे। डिफेंस पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग्स के अंदर में जिस प्रकार से विस्तार हो रहा है, कंट्री के अंदर में मैन्युफैक्चरिंग बढ़ रहा है, उनको लोगों को ये लोग चाहिए जो डिसिप्लिन्ड हों, ट्रेनेबल हों और जिनके साथ जिनके पास में उम्र हो। इनका सबसे बड़ा एसेट है इनकी उम्र, कि ये अभी भी यंग है। इस उम्र में कई लोग अभी भी अगर जाए पॉलिटेक्निक के अंदर में लोग भर्ती होने के लिए जाते हैं तो उनमें से कई लोग 22, 23 साल के होते हैं, 2 साल 3 साल का कोर्स करते हैं। उसके बाद वो अपने लिए एक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग जाए, कोई कंप्यूटर का कोर्स करते हैं, 2 साल का कंप्यूटर का कोर्स करें। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी के फील्ड में इतने वो हैं तो इनके लिए स्थान ज़्यादा होंगे। इनका भविष्य टोटली सुरक्षित है और इनको किसी प्रकार की चिंता करने की बात नहीं है, क्योंकि इनके पास में 22 साल की उम्र है, इनके पास में 4 साल देश की सेवा करने का एक सर्टिफिकेट है, इनके पास में एजुकेशनल क्वालिफिकेशन की एक वो है और उसके अलावा इनके पास में एक ऐसी धनराशि भी है जिससे इसको इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं। और अभी इनकी इनकम्बेंसीज नहीं है, अभी इनके परिवार नहीं है। जो ट्रेनिंग के लिए चाहे तो कोई मद्रास जाना चाहता है, कोई कश्मीर जाना चाहता है, कहीं भी जा सकता है। वो मोबाइल है। जब वो 34 साल की उम्र में आप उसको भेजते हैं, उसके साथ सबसे बड़ा अन्याय है, क्योंकि ना तो वो घर बैठ सकता है, ना लोग ऐसी जगह पे जा सकता, अपने क्षेत्र से बाहर भी नहीं जा सकता।
बॉक्स बहुत चीज़ मैंने सुपर एडिट किया था और मोस्टली मेरा कॉन्ट रीजनिंग और मॉक टेस्ट भी था। और एक अच्छी बात हॉलीवुड की कि जितनी भी फैकल्टी है सब नो नॉनसेंस है, पढ़ाई की बात होती है और कोई दरगर की बात नहीं, कोई बेकार का मोटिवेशन कोट नहीं है। अगर आपको कुछ करना होता है तो ऐसे फैकल्टीज की जो भीड़ से हटकर पढ़ाते भी हैं, तो उस वजह से अप्रोचेज अलग होने की वजह से मुझे एग्जाम में भी काफ़ी अच्छी मिली। तो इसलिए मैं हॉलीवुड का बहुत
कि टेस्ट सीरीज ज्वाइन करी तो उसका मुझे डेफिनेटली हेल्प हुआ, क्योंकि वो जो टेस्ट सीरीज था वो एग्जाम ओरिएंटेड मुझे लगा, मतलब जैसे एग्जाम में आता है।
आई ऑल्सो यूज Hollywood's YouTube channel extensively, covering budget, economic survey, top 100 MCQ series that you guys were doing. So these were my sources basically.
जो मेन एग्जाम में लेवल रहता है वो आप लोगों ने दे रखा है और बच्चों को जरूर प्रीफर करना चाहिए।
तपे जब लोहा आग में, शोर हथौड़ा मचाए, खींचकर सीमेंट की चादर ईंट दर ईंट इमारत बन जाए। वक्त के साथ चलते चलते वक्त से पहले साया अपना वादा निभाए। साया, relationships forever.
I get that about कि जब वो बाहर निकलते हैं. Now the thing is that आप खुद गांव से हैं सर. You are a son of an army person. You have worn the military uniform, the police uniform. You've been awarded the Kirti Chakra, military honor for a policeman. You understand that when you go back to the village, the respect that a uniform gets. Now many in the villages are saying कि ये 4 साल के छोकरे बाहर निकल के आएंगे, they will not be given the same respect. That वर्दी will not have the same honor, the respect that it had, because it doesn't carry with it the weight of national service over decades.
मेरे ख्याल से ये भी पूरा भ्रम है. गांव के अंदर में अभी भी इनकी उतनी प्रतिष्ठा और इज्जत और सम्मान होगा. गांव में नहीं, गांव के बाहर भी ये देश की एक बड़ी भारी निधि होंगी. ये इतने हज़ारों की संख्या में जो ये बच्चे होंगे, जब ये ओवर द ईयर्स समाज के भिन्न भिन्न भागों में जाएंगे, व्हेन दे विल गो एंड मैन पोजीशंस in different walks of life, they will bring with them the work culture, the ethos, the values which they have imbibed in army. Army has sent them in as a totally transformed persons. So they will be the great harbingers of the change. वो परिवर्तन को एक नई दिशा देंगे. और ये जो लोगों को भ्रम है कि इनका सम्मान और इनका वो नहीं होगा, ये बिल्कुल गलत है. मेरे ख्याल से अग्निवीरों को उतना ही सम्मान होता है. आज भी कितने लोग अपनी कोशिश करते हैं पारिवारिक कारणों से सेना को छोड़ के कभी कभी आना पड़ता है. कुछ लोग हमेशा से पहले कलर सर्विस कितनी थी, 1962 तक तो 7 ईयर्स थी. उसके बाद में भी समय समय पर इसने ये कहा गया है कि इसको वो किया जाए. तो 7 ईयर्स की कलर सर्विस के बाद में जो आदमी जाता था उसको क्या सम्मान मिलता था, इसको अधिक सम्मान मिलेगा क्योंकि इसके पास में आगे का कैरियर भी है.
Sir, अगर if this scheme was so overdue, so necessary, keeping in view that wars have changed, the nature of wars have changed, and the nature of the requirement of manpower has changed for India, अगर ये इतना overdue था तो इसके against इतने protest, इतने sudden protest क्यों हुए?
देखिए ऐसा है, इसमें 2 तरह के प्रोटेस्ट या अपोजिशन है मैं कहूँगा. एक तो ये है जो कंसर्न हैं, वो देशभक्त भी हैं, उन्होंने देश की सेवा भी की है और अपने जीवन का बड़ा भाग जो है देश के लिए अपनी जानों की बाजी भी लगाई है. उनको फियर ऑफ अननोन है. और जब भी कोई परिवर्तन आता है, एनी टाइम दैट अ चेंज कम्स, उसके साथ में जुड़ी हुई एंजाइटीज़ एंड फेयर्स आर ऑलवेज देयर. कुछ भय होते हैं, कुछ आकांक्षाएं होती हैं, कुछ अनागतवती चिंताएं होती हैं जो आदमी को घेरती है. इतना बड़ा परिवर्तन, इतना बड़ा चेंज हो जाएगा तो कहीं ये तो नहीं सब कुछ पलट जाएगा. तो ये हम इसको समझ सकते हैं. इसके लिए आपने देखा होगा, यदि आपने 15 तारीख जून के बाद में जैसे जैसे इन लोगों को अधिक सूचना और पूरी बात का पता चल रहा है और भी बातों का समय के साथ पता लगेगा, वैसे वैसे ये लोग इसको समझ रहे हैं कि ये तो हमारी बड़ी पुरानी आवश्यकता थी. इसमें हमारे वेटरन्स भी शामिल हैं और ये एक अच्छी चीज़ है. उनके कंसर्न हैं कि इनका क्या होगा. अब उनको पता लग रहा है कि इनके लिए भी एक भविष्य निश्चित करने की योजना है. उनको ये लग रहा है कि आर्मी के अंदर में जो एक्सपीरियंस लोग रहेंगे कि नहीं. अब उनको भी पता लग रहा है कि नहीं, आर्मी तो एक्सपीरियंस लोगों की, आर्मी डिमोबिलाइज हो रही है. ये लोग तो रहेंगे ही. और इसके बाद में जो आएंगे वो अग्निवीर के स्ट्रीम से आएंगे, वो एक दूसरे स्ट्रीम से आ रहे हैं. पर यही फिर आगे इनके 5 साल 6 साल 15 साल ये और सर्विस करेंगे. तो उनकी वो जो भय और आकांक्षाएं हैं उनमें धीरे धीरे कमी आ रही है. एक दूसरे वर्ग है, उसका ना राष्ट्र से कोई मतलब है, ना राष्ट्र की सुरक्षा से कोई मतलब है, ना वो राष्ट्र के प्रति इतने समर्पित हैं. उनके दे आर कन्फ्लिक्ट एंटरप्रेन्योर्स. व्हाट दे वांट इज दैट दे वांट ए कन्फ्लिक्ट इन द सोसाइटी. दे वुड लाइक टू क्रिएट एनीथिंग विच इज क्लोज टू द अनार्की. Now these are the persons who will go for stone throwing, demonstrations, burning the trains and others, not what is the cause. But wherever there is an opportunity, they think that they can emotionalize or mislead the people, or they can have this thing. जो अग्निवीर बनने वाला होगा वो ना किसी प्रलोभन में आता है, ना वो किसी से बहकाया जा सकता है, ना वो किसी के द्वारा दुष्प्रचार के लिए प्रेरित किया जा सकता है. ये जितने लोग हैं, मुझे नहीं लगता कि ये वो लोग हैं जो कि सेना के लिए और सेना में जाने के लिए बहुत इच्छुक है या जिनके पास में एक साइकिक मेंटल सेट है, वो अपने घर में बैठ कर तैयारी कर रहे होंगे।
Didn't the security establishment anticipate कि ऐसे conflict entrepreneurs जो आप कह रहे हैं that they will make use of this scheme to mislead people and to cause street unrest?
Well, something was anticipated as well also, because we thought that, well, these people who have got a vested interest, they have got vested interest because some people are making money through the coaching centers, they have vested interest because they would like to discredit the government on any count. There are some vested interests who would like the youth to be provoked against the establishment and others. We had it, but then it's a democracy. We cannot take the action and we cannot do this thing. But once they take and transgress those red lines where the limits of their freedoms start undermining the country's national security or internal security or the law and order or the peace of the country, certainly the action is taken and has been taken.
अब मुझे समझ आ गया कि इतने ट्रेडर स्मार्ट ट्रेडर प्लान क्यों ले रहे हैं। जब मैंने डिटेल्स देखी तो रीजन काफी क्लियर था। 99 रुपीज पर मंथ, जीरो ब्रोकरेज ट्रेडिंग, अनलिमिटेड ऑर्डर्स, एडवांस ऑप्शन चेंज, फास्ट ऑर्डर एग्जीक्यूशन और ट्रेडिंग टूल्स जो एक्टिव ट्रेडर्स को हर दिन चाहिए होते हैं। इसलिए लोग सिर्फ प्राइस की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं, वैल्यू की बात कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि एक्टिव ट्रेडर्स के लिए हर ट्रेड मैटर करता है। आज ही स्टॉक्स कार्ड स्मार्ट ट्रेडर प्लान बाय करो और फर्स्ट डे से ब्रोकरेज जीरो करो। ट्रेड बेफिक्र विद स्टॉक्स कार्ड।
So you think that, in your opinion, street protests are justified to a certain extent in a democracy? Do you agree with that?
Well, I think that the protests or the raising your voice, expressing your this thing is justified and is permitted in a democracy. But this vandalism, but this violence, it is not permitted and will not be tolerated at all.
So our security forces, I mean the state police, I mean out here, they were just not equipped to handle it. We saw for hours together coaches burning. Hours together the coaches were burning. There was no firefighting equipment in the railway stations. Railway police हम सिर्फ देखते हैं marching, but वहाँ पे कोई railway police नहीं थी। 4-5 घंटे trains were burning. We've seen protests with regard to, the earlier protests also. 1 week they've been going on with regard to prophet remarks or with regard to anything. Policemen crying, sir, forces bhej dijiye. The impression one gets is that these reforms which you are bringing about in the forge, it's probably more needed for civilians, for the police.
Well, I think reforms are required at various fronts. There's no doubt about it. I totally agree. Reforms are required in police, but it's such a huge country of 140 करोड़ लोगों का देश है। इसके अंदर में कहीं कहीं जब कोई घटनाएं होती हैं, उसमें कहीं पर पुलिस की गलती होती है, कहीं पर सर्कमस्टेंसेस ऐसे होते हैं, कहीं पर सूचना का अभाव होता है। These are the things that it happens. They should be investigated, they should be corrected, lessons should be learned to see that they are prevented. There is no justification in case the violence takes place.
So, आप conflict entrepreneurs की बात कर रहे थे. As far, I understand that you cannot divulge much about it, but आपने coaching centers की बात की. Is there also a political element that was funding maybe, or that was pushing these young men onto the streets to pick up stones?
Well, in many cases the FIRs have been lodged. Wherever there have been incidents of violence, people have been identified. There have been TV cameras and others. Probably it's only after the due investigation that we can say that which were the forces behind it and who did it and why did they do it. And I would not like to preempt something or presume something, but I think the investigations must be done very thoroughly.
So, because there are some politicians who are saying, and this is across the country, many politicians feel कि ये जब अग्निवीर बाहर आएंगे, they could be mercenaries for hire. It could pose a risk, law and order situation in their states also. So, is that fear valid, or would you just dismiss it?
It is totally invalid. I have been in the business of security for last 55 years. I can tell you, if there is any guarantee in the society to keep peace, stability, rule of law, it will be the citizenship and the civilian population of this country who have to become law-abiding. And you will find the best of the law-abiding citizens in this youth who will not only abide by the law, but will make others and will be the harbingers and the nucleus of the people who will have a nationalist sentiments, who will protect the national interest and create that environment. This an environment of this thing is a creation of the undisciplined minds. People have got no sense of commitment. जिनका ना राष्ट्र से प्रेम है, जिनका ना समाज के प्रति कोई उत्तरदायित्व है, ना जिनके अपने प्रति कोई इस प्रकार का उनका ध्येय या लक्ष्य है कि हम राष्ट्र के निर्माण में क्या कर सकें। ये लोग अच्छे लड़के होंगे, फिजिकली फिट होंगे, उसके बाद 4 साल की ट्रेनिंग में केवल इनके शरीर ही नहीं बढ़ते हैं, इनके मस्तिष्क के अंदर में भी एक ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन आता है। उनका सोचने का तरीका फ़र्क होता है, उनका एक नेशनल पर्सपेक्टिव बनता है, एक ऑल इंडिया पर्सपेक्टिव बनता है। जब ये समाज में जाएंगे और बड़ी संख्या में ओवर द ईयर्स समाज के, सरकार के, प्राइवेट सेक्टर के विभिन्न अंगों में जब ये होंगे तो ये अपने चारों तरफ, अपने परिवारों में, अपने गांव में एक ऐसे वातावरण का वो करेंगे और एक इस प्रकार की फोर्स की तरीके से इमर्ज होंगे जो कि हमारी इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी के लिए एक बड़ा भारी एसेट होगा। और इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी जो है वो बहुत आवश्यक है हमारे राष्ट्र की एक्सटर्नल सिक्योरिटी के लिए।
बट सर, डोंट यू अंडरस्टैंड दैट और डोंट यू सी द फियर दैट ये जो इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी को ज़रा भी डिसरप्ट किया जाए, इवन इन पॉकेट्स, जैसे आपने CAA स्टर में देख लिया, उसके बाद हिजाब रिमार्क्स हो जाती हैं, मे बी नॉट द हिजाब एंड द प्रॉफिट रिमार्क्स बट CAA स्टर एंड द एग्रीकल्चर रिफॉर्म्स की जो लॉज थे, अगर इसमें क्या होता है दैट द वर्ड गोज आउट दैट ऑन द स्ट्रीट दैट इफ यू पुश द गवर्नमेंट, इफ यू पुश द सिक्योरिटी एस्टेब्लिशमेंट टू अ सर्टेन एक्सटेंट विद स्ट्रीट प्रोटेस्ट, देयर कुड बी अ रोल बैक. So is there any chance that because of these street protests there could be a rollback to the Agnipath scheme?
There is no question of any rollback. There is no question. It is. Let me tell you one thing. This is not something which is a knee-jerk reaction which has come overnight. This has been being debated and discussed for decades. In 70s we had General Krishna Rao Committee, of which General Sundarji, General Chibbar, they were the members. They talked about reorganization and reforming of the army, including the manpower policy, technology and others.
So you're talking 40 years back?
No, not only that. It is not only 40 years back. Then there was this thing of the Arun Singh Committee report in 1989. Then there was a group of ministers, this thing.
Arun Singh Committee would be 30 years then. So what you're telling me is systematically there have been...
No. Every time it was being felt, there was this thing of the Subramanian Committee report, the Kargil Committee report.
So again, that is 30 years.
Again, then there was a group of ministers report. Okay. And then all these consistently had a refrain, go for a young army.
So across
the army's demand.
Across different political parties which have been in power.
But there was a problem. While everybody realized that it was necessary, nobody had the will and the ability to take the risks. I'll tell you an example. Ministry of Defence in 2006 wrote a letter to the Ministry of Defence wrote a letter to the Ministry of Home Affairs that we are thinking of implementing this thing. Will the CPMFs be able to take some people on this thing, the reserve for that? Home Ministry gave a reply to the Defence Minister's letter that we are forming a committee under the Director General BSF to examine the matter. That committee's report has never seen by anyone. That letter of the Defence Minister was never sent back. Defence Minister never sent any reminder. It is that
So when was this?
It was in 2007.
Okay.
The letter was sent in 2006 and 2007 the committee was formed.
So this is bureaucracy going round and round?
No, it's not a bureaucracy. It was a political will. That is, it is such a big problem. It's such a huge mass. Who will dare getting into it and bringing about the change? It can happen only with a leader like Prime Minister Modi, who will say that if this is in the national interest, if this will make India strong and secure, then no risk is big enough, then no cost is high enough. Even if it is a political cost, I will pay it, because he visualizes what happens to the Indian army 15 years from now. Security is not only thinking about your generation, also about the future generations. You will have an army which has been recruited and selected, and they have got manned by the people who have got the highest degree of fitness, agility, training, capabilities and others. They would be manning it. And then there will be a civil society in which you will have thousands of people who are there to bring about the change. They will be the catalysts of change.
So Prime Minister Modi just yesterday has said that any kind of reforms that come, they disturb the status quo, who have benefited from status quo. Is it that this Prime Minister has the forge and the bureaucracy with him, that earlier Prime Ministers didn't have it, and that is why the MOD, the MHA, the defense, the uniformed soldier, they are not on the same page? Is it that the earlier Prime Ministers didn't have it and this Prime Minister has it?
Well, yes, this Prime Minister, firstly, he has got a clarity of vision and he has got the ability to take decisions. He is very right in telling that all status quoists will have some doubts, will have some genuine fears. It requires a certain clarity. There's a lot of clutter and confusion, and to take it out, you need a very clear-headed leadership. When he is clear-headed, people down the line also become clear-headed. Probably the earlier regimes created a muddle because they themselves were not clear. What did they want? What transformation they want to bring about? And what is the cost, and are they prepared to pay that cost? With the Prime Minister, I think the entire army, and let me tell you one thing, late General Rawat, he is not here. He was one of the persons who was spearheading it very this way. Successive army chiefs in the last few years. I think it has been going on for last 3 years or something like that, that we had been deliberating and thinking and this thing like that. I had seen large number of meetings over this thing and others. Smallest point, smallest detail have been gone into. And there is a total support, there is a total commitment, there is a total desire and also an enthusiasm about bringing about this change. These doubts were in our minds also. We resolved those doubts. Okay. We tried to find out how we can minimize that, how we can mitigate the possible threats and the dangers.
So you've been with Mr. Modi since he took office in 2014. There's been a doctrinal shift in India's relations with Pakistan since he's become Prime Minister, since you've been the NSA. You've seen several regimes change in Pakistan. Do you think, from a security perspective, is it possible for this kind of, I will not talk to you, you have to stop terror, till then I will not talk to you? And can nations prosper with that attitude going forward?
Now, I'll tell you one thing. We cannot have peace and war at the choice of our adversary. If we have to protect our interests, we will decide when and with whom and on what terms we will have peace. When our core interests are involved, there is no question of peace at any cost. There has got to be a peace. We want very good relations with our neighbors, Pakistan included. We would like to have good relations with them. We would like to have very normal relations with them. But certainly the tolerance threshold for terrorism is very low. We certainly would not like to make our citizens as sitting ducks for the terrorists who come and this thing. Thank God, and I think I must this thing to the God. In last 8 years, this country has not seen any terrorist this thing except Jammu and Kashmir, which has been this thing of a proxy war. So it's a different type of a proxy war. Just before that, say between 2005 to 2014, we had Bombay, we had Pune, we had Kanpur, we have got Delhi, we have got this whole range of this, Bangalore, Ahmedabad and other. What was the whole range of this thing the country was being this way? If we were not firm, if we were not very decisive, if we did not have the clarity, we will fight it. And we will not beg for peace at any terms.
So you spoke about Jammu Kashmir, so I have to say this because we saw that when Article 370 was taken back, you went there. You went to Kashmir, you spoke to the people. We saw that happening. What do you have to say to people who are victims of these lone wolf attacks which are happening? Yes, I agree that that terrorism as such from Pakistan is gone, but then these are these lone wolf attacks, soft targets which are going. How will you cope with that? How will terror end in every form in Kashmir?
Well, this is a problem of security, and we are dealing with it, and we are dealing with effectively. Firstly, you must understand one thing. Post 2019, the mood and the temper of the people of Kashmir has totally changed. People are no more in favor of Pakistan, in favor of terrorism, in favor of this thing. You can see, where is Hurriyat today? Where are those Bandh calls? Where is this Friday Hartals? They have all gone, this thing like that. But some individuals, some young boys who are misled or who are this thing, they are getting into this thing. We are doing our best to persuade them. Their families are trying to persuade them. A lot of change has come about. but still there are few persons and some individual tanzeems, the militant organizations and others who are still operated and go by a mistaken notion of their beliefs or whatever is that they want to be the fidains and they want to come. They do create problems for us. We are fighting them. And we are fighting them with total resolve. There is no way to deal with the terrorists. We don't deal with terrorism. We have to deal with the terrorists. And terrorists, their equipment, their weapons, their explosives, their money, and we on all fronts are trying to tackle it. And we are very hopeful that in another few months we'll be able to get it.
The Kashmiri Hindus, especially the Pandits, they feel very let down, to some of them, that there is so much energy expended in bringing these terrorists or militants or separatists back into the mainstream, that those who have supported Mr. Modi, the BJP and this government all through, that they are being taken for granted and their security is not of paramount concern to the security establishment.
Firstly, I don't think that is the real feeling of all Kashmiri Pandits or people who have been displaced. But yes, they are a vulnerable section. They need protection. They have got to be protected. Government has taken various measures in the past. Probably much more has to be done, and that is being done. We have got to see that wherever they are and whatever protection they require, because they can be the soft targets and no government will be able to give an individual protection to each individual in any village or far off places. So we have to find out the systems, and best thing is that we go on the offensive against the terrorists and try to see that these persons who possibly can threaten their lives or their properties and others, they are accounted for.
So where are we vis-a-vis China? It's now 2 years since the Galwan incident, and there seems to be an uneasy peace. Do you feel that China has put on hold its expansionist policy with regard to us, with regard to Indian territory?
Well, we have got a long pending a territorial dispute with China. We have made our both intentions and this thing very clear to China, and they are aware of the fact that, well, we will not tolerate any transgression. There had been some unsavory incidents in 2020. We have been able to, through the talks, through the negotiations, through the persuasion and others, resolve some of it. Few points still remain to be resolved and others. We will continue our efforts. At the same time, we have got to ensure that is we are vigilant and we are able to protect our borders totally.
बात समझ लीजिए, ना बीमारी दुनिया से कहीं जाने वाली है और ना ही हॉस्पिटल के खर्चे। बस आपको ये सोचना होगा कि हॉस्पिटल का बिल कौन भरेगा, आप या आपकी इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी। आज ही पॉलिसी बाजार से हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस लीजिए। पॉलिसी बाजार पे 1 करोड़ का हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस सिर्फ 550 रुपए हर महीने से शुरू होता है।
So internal security, external relations, these are mainly conducted behind closed doors, in hush-hush manner. Some of it is visible to common people. But there is also a view that, keeping in nature with federal structure, things like what has been done, the Agniveer scheme, maybe there can be a more consultative manner in dealing with these apprehensions. Do you feel that there is a time that the time has come to change how internal security is, decisions regarding internal security are taken in this country?
Management of security is but once it becomes public, our adversaries will take advantage of that. So we have got to maintain a certain amount of secrecy. As far as the consultative process is concerned, India's democracy and India's this thing is so open. If it was not such a this thing, you would not find that on every issue, if there are 100 people, there are 101 opinions. And they are freely expressed from the street to the press to the media and everywhere.
So you spoke about India's adversaries taking advantage of any kind of unrest which happens in India, but then we saw with regard to the prophet remarks and the hijab protests that people who we had presumed had become non-adversaries of ours, had suddenly started making comments, had suddenly started doubting India's democracy or India's inclusive society. Do you feel that these protests have gone beyond this and have damaged us terribly?
Well, it has, you know, in the sense India has been projected or rather some disinformation has been spread against India, which is far from the realities and the truth. And probably there's a need for us to engage them, to talk to them and convince them. And you would have found that, well, wherever we have gone or wherever we have engaged with the concerned people, both outside and inside, we have been able to convince them and try to find out this thing, and it will subside. But it happens. When people get emotionally aroused and others, sometimes their behavior is little disproportionate to the actual event, but it has this thing.
Does it put the security establishment on a back foot when these kind of street protests take place on very sensitive topics like the Agnipath scheme?
Well, I don't think that it puts this thing. The only thing is when the law is transgressed. If there are protests, if there is a point of view that people want to have this thing, they have got the right to dissent. In a democracy, that is a right that should be honored, and that should be it should be given ample space. But when it starts hurting the national interests, when it starts undermining the national security, when it starts threatening the life of a law-abiding common citizen, when it starts causing pain to him, it becomes intolerable. And this is what our law says, this is what our constitution says, and that is why the law enforcement agencies are bound by the law, they are bound by their oath to protect the people, to protect their interests, to protect their properties, and not allow the miscreants and the anti-social and the anti-national elements to make better of the society.
So as I wrap up, I just have one question on Afghanistan and the recent attack on Sikhs out there and India giving visas to them. Where is it going now? Are Hindus and Sikhs and other minorities, will they find home in India? Will there be, will we increase the number of people that we take from Afghanistan into India? What happens with CAA? Will that come into force?
Well, I think it's very clear. CAA very clearly says that in our neighborhood, in case any of these the minorities there are on the basis of their religion are persecuted, we will give them. We have given the visas to a large number of Sikhs, and I think as the flights are available, they will be. Some of them will be coming back, and others who will apply probably will look at their cases very, very sympathetically. So it was a very unfortunate incident. It should not have happened, but there are forces. You know that terror and this thing, violence, they are the things in which we have to live with in the modern times. But Government of India is doing everything, and it has assured the Sikhs there and the Hindus there. I think there are very few Hindus left there, but they have assured them that India will stand by its commitment and by its assurances.
So towards the end, do you have any message for youth who feel disillusioned and disheartened that maybe some of them were part of the protest, regret it, and would like to take the Agniveers? Is it over? Are the doors shut for them?
Well, as far as the message to the youth is concerned, ये मैसेज बड़ा क्लियर होना चाहिए कि सेना में जो लोग जाते हैं वो केवल पैसे के लिए नहीं जाते, वो एक जज्बे के साथ जाते हैं। उनमें देश प्रेम होता है, उनके अंदर में राष्ट्र की भक्ति होती है, उनके अंदर में यौवन की शक्ति होती है। वो इसको इन्वेस्ट करते हैं अपने आप को और सोचते हैं हम देश के लिए क्या कर सकें। अगर वो भावना नहीं है तो आप इस करियर के लिए नहीं बने। इसमें केवल हम उन्हीं यूथ को चाहते हैं। आपकी ट्रेनिंग कितनी है, आपकी फिजिकल फिटनेस कितनी है, ये आवश्यक है, लेकिन इससे भी ज़्यादा आवश्यक है कि आपकी मानसिकता क्या है। तो अगर कोई भी यूथ अग्निवीर बनना चाहता है, और मेरा सारे यूथ को इस देश के से यही है, मेरा मैसेज यही है, पॉजिटिव हों, बी पॉजिटिव, हैव फेथ इन द नेशन, हैव फेथ इन योर लीडरशिप, when you join the army and others, the leadership there, have faith in the society and have faith in yourself. That is the most important thing. स्वामी विवेकानंद कहते थे, पुराना धर्म कहता था कि नास्तिक वो है जो ईश्वर पर विश्वास नहीं करता, नया धर्म ये कहता है कि नास्तिक वो है जो स्वयं पर विश्वास नहीं करता। अगर आपको अपने ऊपर विश्वास है तो आपकी फिजिकल फिटनेस, आपकी मेंटल फिटनेस, आपकी ट्रेनिंग, आपकी उसको और आपकी आयु को देखते हुए आपके लिए सारी दुनिया पड़ी है। यू कैन कंकर द वर्ल्ड, द होल वर्ल्ड इज फॉर यू। अगर आप डिमोरलाइज्ड हैं, अगर आपकी नेगेटिव थिंकिंग है, तो आपको सारी चीज़ें पॉजिटिव होते हुए भी भविष्य अंधकार में दिखेगा। भविष्य में आस्था रखिए, अपने में विश्वास रखिए और आपका भविष्य बहुत उज्जवल होगा।
धन्यवाद डोवल जी, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर स्पीकिंग विद अस।
Hello, I'm David Gergen, here at the Kennedy School at Harvard, and we're with Senior Minister Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore. We'll be asking him about leadership, but perhaps I should introduce the other members of our panel as we begin. To my right is Professor Ronald Heifetz here at the Kennedy School, Senior Minister. As you know, Dr. Heifetz has a background. He's taught here in leadership courses at the Kennedy School and has really been one who laid the foundations for the study of leadership at the Kennedy School. He's been here for over 15 years. To his right is Dean Williams, who has his teaching a leadership course now. He joined us at the faculty and has had a very popular course on leadership over the past year, I guess it's been now, Dean, and who has worked in Singapore, as you have just heard, and whose wife is Singaporean. So we're delighted to have him here. And at his right is John Thomas, who runs the program on Singapore here at the university, and has travels regularly to Singapore, and has also worked for the National University there as well. Now, Senior Minister, our thought today is that you have written two extensive books of memoirs, I guess. Is there another one still to come after this, or is this it?
That depends on how long I live.
Well, in that case, this will be the second of 4 volumes.
If I live another 50 years.
Exactly. So we might ask you for starters, if you would. I find that in talking to people in China, many of them look to you as a model of personal leadership. And we'd like to begin by asking you, what, as you look back upon your years, what did you think were the essential elements of your own leadership?
Well, to understand what made me and my colleagues become the people we did become, we've got to understand the history, because we went through a harrowing period that tempered us. That either broke us or tempered us. We lived in happy, placid colonial Singapore in the 1920s, 30s. We grew up there. And the British Empire would have lasted another 1,000 years, so we thought. Then the war broke out in Europe, and I'd been wanting to do law, which could only be done in Britain. So to mark time, because France had fallen, I was 18. I joined the local college, Raffles College, to do a humanities course, economics, English literature, and mathematics. My generation did that. Then in our second year, in December 1942, although the signs were there, but the overconfidence was overwhelming. Never believed that the Japanese dared attack. And on the 8th of December, which was 7th, your dateline, about 4 a.m., they came over and dropped bombs. Utter shock. Then the war began, and in less than 1.5 months, they were right down from the peninsula, from Saigon, where they had based themselves, onto Peninsula Malaya, on bicycles and tanks, came right through at the gates of Singapore. All the guns were pointing out in a different direction. Then the bombardment started, and we saw within 1.5 months, the total collapse of the British Raj. And the painting that the Japanese captured was symbolic. I mean, there was this tall, gangling Lieutenant General Sir Archibald Percival, top of his class in Staff and Command College in Camberley, the white flag and the Union Jack. And there was this Tomoyuki Yamashita with his big sword, looking dominating. And the Dark Ages just closed in on us. 3.5 years of hell, butchery, brutality. Many didn't survive. I was fortunate, I did. But it changed us. I don't know why I was spared, just the luck of the draw. Because they picked up all the healthy young men on the basis that they're likely to cause trouble. So polish them off. And anywhere between 50 to 100,000 were taken to the beaches, lined up, and just shot. 3.5 years of privation, reflection, changed us. What right did they have to do this to us? Why did the British let us down so badly? Churchill decided it wasn't worth the sacrifice. He was concentrating on the Middle East. Well, 2 atomic bombs and we were saved, otherwise we would have been destroyed. I mean, towards the end, 1945, when they knew they were losing, and they were retreating all the way from the Arakan coast down, they built trenches into every hillock in Singapore, labyrinths, and they had every intention to be there until the flamethrowers incinerated them. But that big bomb and the Emperor's speech and they meekly surrendered. Some committed suicide. Oh, British came back. Happy times didn't return because they lacked shipping, they lacked medicine, they lacked food. But gradually it improved. My generation then resumed our studies. I went to England, studied in Cambridge to do law, spent 3 years there, took my degree, and 1 year in London. But I was then watching them with different eyes. Can they govern me better than I can govern myself? Because they scooted when the Japanese came in. And why shouldn't I be running the place, my colleagues and I? So that was the beginning, and we went back, built up mass support, how to build up mass support. Here we were, a group of armchair politicians talking revolution in British pubs, crawling from one pub to the other. When we came back, we decided, let's start up with the unions, because there was considerable dissatisfaction with low wages and bad conditions. So we spent several years working voluntarily as honorary advisors. I was a lawyer, it's for free, and we built up a whole host of unions that formed the basis upon which we could base a party, which we did by 4 years later. I started in 1950, by 1954, my colleagues and I, we were about a group of 6 or so. We formed a party, and the communists joined us. This common enemy, the British. They were not really communists, they're just left-wingers, but some were. And that was the beginning of a life and death struggle, first with the communists. The fight with the British was the easiest because they were not putting up a fight. They just wanted to make sure that power was handed over to a group that wouldn't ruin the place and ruin their interests. The fight was with the communists, who wanted a different system. Then to defeat the communists, because of the demography of Singapore, we were 70% Chinese, and all of them believed that communist China was a tremendous success, all the glorious pictures coming out of huge steel mills and ships and plants. It was an uphill fight. So we said, like, let's join up with the peninsula, rejoin them. Then it'd be 40% Malays, 40% Chinese, 20% others. So the communists can't win. But when we joined the Malaysians, other Malays, they were not keen on this kind of psephology. They wanted 50 or 60% Malays, and they win. So after less than 2 years, they said, leave or there'll be bloodshed. It was a fine judgment whether they were threatening us, not really wanting to have bloodshed, but just wanting to get rid of us, or maybe the old Tunku who was then in charge was really out of control, and the young Turks were determined to rough us up. Snap decision had to be made, so we decided, okay, let's have a go on our own. So we left. And we have this tiny little island, 214 square miles at low tide, center of the British Empire in Southeast Asia, military base, commercial base, administrative capital, from which they govern Malaya, Borneo, Cocos Islands, Christmas Islands in the Indian Ocean. But now we got a heart without the body. All we had was the heart. How do we live? Where's the circulation coming from? That was the beginning of the challenge.
Let's, if we might, rather than going through the elements of leadership for the moment, why don't we come back to the formative years, formative experiences? Dean, you want to pursue that?
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about the challenges associated with trying to exercise leadership, mobilize, I guess, the competing factions to deal with the challenges of getting the British out of Singapore and Malaya, and that alliance you had with the communists, because potentially that could have been, well, it was threatening to you, and if had they won in any way, they could have just killed you.
We would have been finished off.
Yes.
Well, it was the sweet innocence of youth. We believe that, you know, they can't all be communists. They look so ordinary people. They were just idealists. Maybe a few were die-hard Marxist Leninists. And why not win them over to our cause? Because anyway, communism can't win in a multiracial society. You've got to win over the Malays, and they're not going to be won over by communism. So we were hopeful that we could win them over. And indeed, we won quite a few of them over. So that encouraged me enormously. But in retrospect, we didn't have a chance. We did not know the depths to which that penetrated the Chinese schools, the clan associations, the Chinese chambers of commerce, the school management committees, alumni associations. Dennis Bloodworth, who was then the observer correspondent for Southeast Asia, covering Singapore and Vietnam, asked me, he says, can't you get rid of these fellows? So I said, they're like radioactive dust. How do you get rid of them? You got to vacuum the whole place out, and with it will go all the activists, and you got all the inert gases left. So we had to take a chance. In the process, we were lucky in that their leaders lacked an understanding of the outside world. They understood the dynamics of conspiracy, you know, that we are on the same side. This cell takes orders from that cell and so on. And if you break the rules, bong. But they didn't understand that if you can't get sovereignty, if you've got only semi-self-government, semi-independence, the British were still in charge. And they could call the game off and bring the troops back. So that was my advantage. I was a lawyer. I understood completely what constitutional practices were. They didn't. So I arranged it such that when we made constitutional advance, I left unchallenged ultimate sovereignty in the hands of the British. I said, you keep that. If I lose, you'll have to deal with this. If I win, then I'll take over. I think that was the first wisdom, that I did not feel confident that I could win. So I had that backstop.
Were there moments of doubt when you were wondering whether at all you could succeed in the face of this this challenge?
Well, when they opened in 1961, just before May Day, May the 1st, the Tunku, Prime Minister of Malaysia, came out at a speech to the Foreign Correspondents Association and says, yes, he will have merger with Singapore, but not with Singapore alone, but with Malaysia, Sabah, Sarawak, and Brunei. That's the dowry for taking in troublesome Singapore. So the communist underground were greatly excited, because then they would be cornered in this bigger federation. So the leader of the underground, who had met me secretly before I was Prime Minister, sent a message through my wife in her lawyer's office to ask to see me. This was quite a dilemma. The last time I saw him, I was just an MP. So I took him to the legislature, and if anything happened, I said, well, I was just meeting a constituent. But this time, I was the Prime Minister. What am I hobnobbing with a man who has to be arrested on sight? I thought it over. I said, he's also taking a risk. Because I could have a posse of police quietly tailing me and surround the whole place. And we've captured the leader of the underground. But then he might bump me off and bump himself off. So I said, no, let's go. Let's see what the score is. So I picked up a little girl with 2 pigtails at a roundabout, and she directed me to the house where we were going to meet. And I was filled with admiration at the careful planning. It took me to an incompleted public housing project, nearly complete, everything ready except power and electricity. So nobody's in charge, nobody's in occupation. You can't claim that you harbored this man. I thought, oh. There he was, candles, beer, glasses. Sat down. He says, we've been misunderstanding each other. We want to cooperate with you. All we want is space for cultural and union activities. You do it your way, we will do it our way. But we must have space. I thought to myself, space to get stronger, then you have a big tight rope and you put it around my neck. So I said to him, well, you have your views and your agenda. I have to do what I have to do. So you do what you have to do, and if we have to part company, let's part in a friendly way. But I can't guarantee your freedom of action in this way. A few days later, he saw the Open Front leader and says, destroy the PAP government. Then they broke off and the fight began. And I wasn't sure we were going to win it. Because all of a sudden, all their sleepers in all the unions and the newspapers, Chinese newspapers particularly, school management committees, chambers of commerce, came out with fiery statements denouncing me as a lackey of the imperialists and tool of the feudal leaders in Malaysia, and so on and so on and so on. And then the fight began for the vote, because I had a referendum. I proposed a referendum to join or not to join Malaysia. And we campaigned for a whole year. We won it. They lost. I gave them no choice, because they had agreed with me that the future of independence lay with merger with Malaysia, with Malaya. And that's all in the written document. So they can't back off. So I said, well, in that case, we will have merger either style 1 or style 2 or style 3. They said, no, you must have anti-merger. I said, no, you never wanted anti-merger. So they called for a blank vote to protest. They got 30% blank votes. I carried 70%. So we went into Malaysia. But in the process, this is where I mean, if Singapore had got independence straight away, we would not have succeeded. It was a fractious, strike-blown, riotous kind of people. Quite irresponsible. They're just angry with the world. But having gone through this awful clash with dark forces that would engulf us, huge, massive rallies which the communists could mount to intimidate people, they decided that this was a very serious business and that we were not unworthy of their trust, that we were prepared to fight. Then, having got to Malaysia, the Malays then mounted riots against us to browbeat us. And at that time, the police and the army were in the hands of the Malays. We stood up and said, no, you stop it. Let's have a commission of inquiry and put the Tunku, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, on the defensive.
I wonder if I could go back a bit and then we'll resume the story to understand more fully what made you personally a leader of your people. Do you feel that you were born a leader, or were there episodes in your youth that shaped you as a leader and allowed you to move forward in the way you did and gave you the confidence to move forward?
I don't think I was born a leader. I was born an activist, yes. I was not the ideal well-behaved boy in class. I never became a school prefect. I never became the school captain. I was always up to some mischief of my own, you know, poking fun at some other student or whatever. There was a certain exuberance in me. What made me a leader was that when the time came, the group of us who were the core of the leadership said, you better lead, because I was the best speaker.
You're the best speaker?
I was the best speaker. I was the best speaker in English, but then the mass of the people who spoke Hokkien and Mandarin and Malay.
That was sort of Chinese language, right?
Yeah. So English was understood then, in the 1950s, by about 20% of the population. So I furiously started learning. Malay I was quite good at, because I grew up with Malay students, so I could easily use bazaar Malay, not polished Malay. Could easily make myself understood. But I then learned Mandarin, the Chinese language of the educated. Then discovered that only 20–30% of the population understood Mandarin. That the vast 70% spoke a variety of dialects, and the most understood dialect was Hokkien, Fujian, what Taiwan uses. So every day at lunchtime, instead of having lunch, I would sit down with a Hokkien teacher and laboriously and painfully learn to convert my Mandarin into Hokkien. And had I not mastered that, the battle would be lost by default. But because I mastered that, we were able to get our message through. And what was more important, I think, in the course of the fight, when I started speaking in Hokkien.
This was in the 1950s?
This was in the 1960s, 61. There was a by-election. The kids just laughed at me because it was comical. So I said, please don't laugh. Help me. I'm trying to get you to understand me. By 6 months, I was able to get my ideas across. By the referendum in 2 years, I was airborne. And so came, it had two advantages. One, it showed to them how determined I was and how sincere I was, because here I am doing all these other things and learning this language to talk to them. And secondly, believe it or not, at the end of 2 years, I could speak better than most of them. That came respect.
Yeah. You said in the book, your second volume, that your greatest asset was your strength at the podium, your capacity to speak. That's really what helped to single you out early, and then to gain the attention and the following. And where did that come from? It was just that was a natural born capacity, or is that something you learned when you went to England?
If you ask me, it must have been innate. I wanted to be a lawyer. Why? Because my parents told me they had suffered with a depression in the 1930s. And their friends who were lawyers or doctors or engineers didn't suffer so badly because they had a profession. So they told me, get a profession. So I wasn't keen on being a doctor. I thought an engineer was a hard life, making machines and so on. Why not be a lawyer? You just
argue.
You argue. And I wasn't bad at that. So I took part in debates in school and became a regular debater and chairman of the debating club. But that's not decisive. I've seen later on in the Cambridge Union Society people make clever speeches. It's a useful technique, but to get across, you must have a deep message which you must be able to put with total conviction. Then they believe you.
And the formative experiences that came in forming your convictions came out of the war, and then what you saw after the war?
Out of the war, out of working with the communists, fighting them, out of going into Malaysia and finding that we were ambushed by the Malay extremists who wanted the Malay-dominated country. And we had to fight them and said, no, what does the Constitution say? We are equal citizens. Then they tried to browbeat us. Blood will flow. But at that moment, when the troops were Malay, police were Malay, the people were greatly relieved and took comfort that here was a group that was prepared to stand up for them and said, oh, we are not scared. Okay, over our dead bodies. You kill us. And take the consequences, because at that moment, British, Australian and New Zealand troops were defending them against Indonesia's confrontation. And if they bumped us off, there'll be a tremendous row in the British Parliament, where I had many friends, in the Australian Parliament, where the Prime Minister, Robert Menzies, was also a friend, and in New Zealand. So they had to weigh the odds of having a mighty big row with their three protectors against Sukarno's forces, or settling in accordance with the Constitution.
Come back to this point you made. It's not enough to make the clever speech. That anybody can do that, but what is important is the conviction that goes with it. Why is that? Why do you distinguish between the two?
Well, because one is just a clever speech, they listen to you and they say, well, oh, smart fellow. But when you're facing a dire crisis and we say, as after a riot, I had to say, you're worried, so am I. I'm worried too. But let me tell you this, if we stay united, there are limits to what they can do to us. Let's have a solidarity movement throughout Malaysia, all the towns. And there are 40% Chinese, 40%, 20% Indians,